Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been going out with a girl, her name is Julie, but last night she said to me when we were watching telly.
Woman up there on the gangway in white. Yes, on the side there. Yes, you.
Yes, I was voting Remain, and at the very last minute I changed my decision and I went to Leave. And the reason because of that is because of, I go to a supermarket and a banana is straight. I'm just sick of the silly rules that come out of Europe. And
Have the bananas changed?
if you go to Aldi, they're a bit bent.
James is in Gravesend. James, what's going on?
Hello, how are you doing, James? You all right?
Very well, mate. What's on your mind?
I've got a butt for you. That clip that you have put out.
Yeah.
It's a bit, you know, you twisted that whole situation, because if you would have carried on with that clip, he said, yeah, right.
Which clip, James? The one about the uranium, the one about the finely tuned machine, or the one about the fake news but real leaks?
The fake news.
Okay.
And real leaks.
I haven't twisted it in the sense of, I mean, it's shorter than the whole 76 minutes.
What it is, you've put in, he said, yeah, it's real leaks, fake news.
Yeah.
But the time the media have finished with the real leaks, it is fake news. And if you would have carried on with what, you know, listen to what he was saying,
Yes.
that's exactly what he said.
Well, I heard the whole speech.
That you put on LBC.
Well, hang on. Let's remind. It's not me that's made it look stupid, James. Let's remind ourselves of the clip you're referring to.
Is it fake news or are these real leaks?
Well, the leaks are real. You're the one that wrote about them and reported them. I mean, the leaks are real. You know what they said. You saw it. And the leaks are absolutely real. The news is fake because so much of the news is fake. So one thing that I felt it was very important to do, and I hope we can correct it, because there's nobody I have more respect for, well, maybe a little bit, but than reporters, than good reporters. It's very important to me, and especially in this position. It's very important. I don't mind bad stories. I can handle a bad story better than anybody, as long as it's true.
Okay, the news is fake because so much of the news is fake. The leaks are real. You know that because you wrote about them and reported them. You're going to have to unpick me. You're going to have to help me out here, James.
So what he's trying to say, that the leaks are real,
yeah,
but the time the media have finished with it, it's fake.
Well, so which bits are fake then?
Well, the media have twisted. What he's trying to say is the media twist the leaks.
How?
So what I say, if they've just got one paragraph of the truth,
no, they've got the full transcripts of the conversations. Listen, I don't want to press you, but you've got to give me an example of what you mean. They've got the full transcripts of the conversation. He said to the journalists that wrote the stories, you know the leaks are real. James, hang on, mate. This is important. He said to the journalists that wrote the stories, you know the leaks are real. You guys reported them, but the news is fake. So just give me a bit of help. And I appreciate this isn't your profession, but at what point did it become fake in your opinion? Well, give me an example of something that's not true that got reported.
I understand where he's coming from. I really do. I understand, because I not hate the media, but I dislike them, I distrust them, because, you know, especially the BBC.
That's fine, but I'm going to just ask you once more. Can you just tell me something that has been published in America about these leaks that's not true?
Well, I've not dig deep into the leaks. But
well, no, it's not the leaks. The leaks are real. It's the fake news I want to hear about.
Coming from.
Yeah.
I understand where he's coming from. What he was trying to say was the time the media finished with it, they twisted it. And
yeah, precisely. So show me the twist. Where is the report that contains something about the leaks that's not true? Because he didn't have a single example.
I've not dig deep into what the leaks are about.
Right.
What I've rang up to say is, this is what the media do. They twist things, and they make.
But we haven't found a single twist.
No, but this is what the media does.
No, but we haven't found a single twist.
He's got it in with CNN. CNN's got so much hate.
Okay, that's what he said. That's what he said. Who would you point at first at CNN in this example of someone who's expressed hatred of Donald Trump?
Oh, I'll tell you, I'll watch CNN. The fella with the grey hair, the hate that comes from him.
So give me an example. What's he...
They put a whole panel in of the left.
No.
That hate him.
Okay, but this is what Donald Trump said yesterday. This is what he said yesterday. You're quoting him.
What do you mean?
You're quoting Donald Trump. You're just repeating what he says.
No, what he was trying to say, what he was saying is that the media twist it, and I know they do.
Yeah, but you can't show me. Just show me a twist. One twist.
Okay, if I'm not dig deep into the left...
But surely you have to dig deep before you arrive at a conclusion about what's going on.
Well, I only saw it last night. So,
Yeah, but you're certain that he's twisted. All right, listen.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I will dig deep tonight, and I will phone you back tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not on tomorrow. It's 10:32. This from Ed. Ken Livingstone was speaking about Corbyn this morning, James. It's apparently nobody's listening, and that's not his fault. Ed adds, poor equal party leader. I'm going to nick that argument when my radars go off a cliff. Radars are the listening figures that radio presenters live and die by, and mine recently had an unprecedented boost. It went up through the roof in the last 3 months of last year, but by the laws of gravity, they're going to have to come back down again. So that's what I'll say to the boss. So no. Look, the show is still brilliant. It's not my fault. No one's listening. Oh, Lord above. The job of a political leader is to speak to every voter in the country. The job of a chairwoman of the WI is to speak exclusively to members. What does this sound like to you?
Sometimes spirits in the Labour Party can run high. Today has been one of those days.
Today has been one of those days.
I'm going to send a message.
Stop it. Make it stop. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. No, sir, is in Hackney. No, sir, what did that make you feel?
You're an asset.
No!
I don't know what your problem is. That's how that makes me feel. I hear a leader talking. I don't know what's your problem.
Well, okay. Who is going to be more likely to vote for the Labour Party in a general election or a council election as a result of that little speech, do you think?
I mean, as a result of that speech, if you really listen to what he was saying, he was talking to the people. And
no, he wasn't. He was talking to members. He was talking exclusively to Labour Party members.
Yes, and he's appealing for everyone to become Labour Party members. That's what he's there to do.
No, he's not. He's there to make people vote Labour, not join the Labour Party.
James, I'm going to say this.
Mate, he's a party leader, not a recruitment consultant.
He's not a recruitment consultant, but you need to understand this. The job of a leader of a country is to lead the people. His job is not to give us a 5-point plan or a 10-point plan or are we going to get the job done. He doesn't have a clue, and nor do you. You don't have a clue. No party comprehensively has a clue on what we need to do. The job of a leader is to present a cause for us to believe in, not to be all politically rich in sentiments on how to get there. Nobody knows. Times are changing.
Do you know? This is going to sound a little bit rude, and I honestly don't mean it to. But I can't think of it. I can't. Thank you. Have you got a clue what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Go on then. Explain again.
I've just told you what my opinion.
No, but I didn't understand any of that. That just sounded like word salad.
Word salad. What does that mean? I've just told you.
It's like a salad of words. It doesn't actually mean anything, but it contains words.
What does a leader mean to you? I mean, if we're going
to me, okay. You asked me a question. Inspirational, informative, brave, passionate, capable of igniting fire in the heart of people listening. That's what leader means to me. What does it mean to you, no, sir?
Someone who gives me a cause to believe in beyond my personal belief. I believe in Jeremy's cause.
Someone who gives you a cause to believe in beyond your personal belief.
Yes,
you've lost me again.
No, I can explain, but my personal beliefs could be subjected to my upbringing. But a leader can come and shed light on a belief that supersedes that. And that's
so what do you believe now that you didn't believe before that speech?
I believe that Jeremy doesn't comprehensively know how he wants to win.
No, mate, believing that Jeremy Corbyn doesn't know how to win is not a cause. You told me that there's a cause, a belief that you have that supersedes the subjective set of values that you were raised with. What do you believe now? What belief are you clinging to that you didn't have before that speech? Let's just play a little bit of it more to give your memory a little bit of a boost.
Calm
The
down.
Labour Party can run high. Today has been one of those days. That's because we're a passionate party.
Passionate.
So I'm going to send a message to all party members.
Party members, no, so not voters, not British people. So what do you believe now that you didn't believe before?
You start from angle 90, then you take a circular view. He's speaking to his people at that point.
So, hang on, rewind that. You start from under 90, and then you take a circle of you.
Of course, you start from your corner. You start from speaking to your own people, your family, before you then present your case to the wider public. And that's what he's doing. He wasn't speaking to everybody.
Right.
You can't speak to everybody, James.
Yeah, you can. I'm doing it now.
No, you can't speak
I'm
to
doing it now.
You think you are, but not everybody is resonating with what you're saying.
No, but everybody is listening to this at the moment from all different political views, all different political persuasions. If I said this speech, today's programme is only for Labour Party members, then you'd have the closest thing to a point that you'd have made since you got on.
Yeah, but not if you want to appeal. You can't have. You can only appeal to those who believe in what you believe. That's all.
And what do you believe? What do you believe now that you didn't believe before that speech?
What do I believe now that I didn't believe? That wasn't.
Is there an echo? There's an echo in the studio. Well, what do you believe now?
Your original question was how that made me feel, and I felt.
All right, do that one then. Have another go at that one. How does that make you feel?
How it makes me feel is I feel like when I go to the ballot box to tender my election or my position for anyone, I'll be voting for a leader. I won't be voting for a political position. I'll be voting for someone.
But leader is a political position.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Times are changing. I think we're now in search for leaders. We're all in search for leaders.
But hang on, you've got a leader. Why are you looking for another leader if this leader's such a good leader?
We're looking for a leader to lead our country. We're not looking.
But he's the leader of the opposition. He's supposed to want to lead our country. Why are you looking for another leader if you've got a leader who wants to be another leader?
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go on.
What's your problem with him?
I just told you.
No, but you
okay, let me put it like this. My problem with him, if I have a problem with him, it would probably be.
Don't say if you have, because you have. What is your problem with him? Beyond saying he's talking salads, what is your primary problem with him? There is a man who's come on and he's giving us his cause.
I have explained at some length that I believe that my country at the moment is in need of a powerful and united opposition on a scale that I haven't.
What does that mean?
Well,
powerful. Powerful is
powerful means
plan.
Powerful means
it's not what you're going to do. You don't have a clue, and nobody has a clue.
Nobody has a clue. What?
Do you have a clue?
I have several clues.
They're all wrong.
What? No, I do. I have many clues.
You should vie for political position if you know how to lead our country forward. The way we're going to move forward is through public discourse. And Jeremy is showing that...
This is public discourse. A speech to Labour members is the opposite of public discourse, no, sir.
A speech to Labour members calling for public discourse, calling for openness, calling for us to remember what the cause is, which is to care about people, is what he was doing. And I don't even...
Why are you shouting at me? Calm down.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Let's have this kind of conversation.
That's all right. No, I got to crack on, mate. You carry on talking. You carry on talking. I'm just going to talk to some other people, and I'll come back in a few minutes to see if you're still at it. You're a very nice man, though, sir. I love you like a brother. But my goodness me, that was an almost uninterrupted cavalcade of nonsense. Ash is in Streatham. Ash, I'm not going mad, am I? No, that was an almost uninterrupted cavalcade of nonsense, right?
I feel tinnitus after that.
Yeah, tinnitus.
Yes.
I think we'll only get true democracy when we get out of the EU.
Yes.
For thousands of years, Britain has ruled in a wonderful way. We've been a light to the world. And now that we're trying to get out of this stupid EU organisation, all this sort of thing that Owen Smith keeps saying, which I'm absolutely sick of hearing, you whinging all the time. Accept it, Owen.
The Ramona in truth. The Ramona in truth. The Ramona in truth is my title, apparently.
Joanna is in Wandsworth. Joanna, what would you like to say?
Oh, hello, James. I just wanted to say it has occurred to me that we're in the position where we are. We vote to leave, and this has come up about NATO. And I think Angela Merkel and the EU ought to take a little responsibility for where we are, because to my mind, if she hadn't humiliated David Cameron and given the British people something they could wish to remain in the EU for, we wouldn't be in this position. And I don't understand why we can't be. We have to be controlled by the EU. Why do we have to be?
What is it you want to do, Joanna, that you can't do until we leave?
I would like us just to be the way we are, but we're not controlled.
No, but that's what I mean. In terms of how they control us, what is it that you're going to be able to do once we finally left that you can't do today?
Well, we would have control of all our laws, whatever they are, and
so which law are you looking for? Which law are you looking forward to losing?
There you go again.
Asking questions, dealing in facts. Well, then you must have known the question was coming. You must have known the question was coming, so you've got a brilliant answer prepared.
No, I don't. But all I know is that they control.
Oh, stop it! Of course you do.
Our laws, and
how do you know that?
And I don't.
Oh, Joanna, I'm not going to get cross with you. You just keep saying this as the country slowly sinks beneath the waves. 60% of our laws, we're getting back control. Our passports are blue.
What Angela Merkel wants is what's right.
Trying to blame Angela Merkel for us punching ourselves in the face.
No, we've done it through democratic referendum.
Yes, so you can vote to punch yourself in the face, Joanna.
No, I haven't. I'm glad, and I would do it again, because I don't see. I couldn't tell my children or my grandchildren, look, you'd never be good enough to be independent. You've always got to be controlled by those unelected people.
And then when I point out to you that you can't give me any evidence at all of us being controlled, you get cross with me, don't you?
Well, they control. They give free movement. You have to have free borders.
No, they have free borders. We don't. We're not in Schengen, and we're not in the euro.
No, I mean there's free movement of people between Britain and the EU.
With some fairly strict rules in place that other countries impose and which we chose not to. But again, you don't know this and you don't care.
Also, I don't see how you can equate free movement with more security. If anybody in the EU, and we know because we've got terrorists here ourselves, our terrorists can go to Europe, their terrorists can come here because they're in the European Union and we have free movement.
Yes.
How does that help our security?
If they're known to be terrorists,
yes,
they won't get in.
Well,
if they're not known to be terrorists, they'll still get in. But you keep on, Joanna, keep on just regurgitating this nonsensical Daily Mail worldview, and you probably won't have to explain to your grandchildren and children why they're poorer and living in a less safe world. And tell me why Donald Trump's good news for Britain while you're here.
I'm not talking about Donald Trump in that.
Well, that's our only ally. It's all we've got left.
But I agree with
Please talk to me about Donald Trump. Tell me why he's good.
Didn't contribute enough, and that America was bearing most of the costs for that.
So NATO, down with NATO now as well.
No, you're taking it to the extreme.
I'm taking it to the extreme. You think that we didn't control our own country, and I'm taking it to the extreme.
Well, I don't know how you can say we control our own country.
I'll show you how. Give me one example of us not being in control.
Free movement of people.
Right, okay, you get your passport. Get your passport out now. Fly to France and tell me how you got back without showing it.
Well, didn't one of the people who were...
oh, my days. I give up. Why have you bothered? Why do you have a passport, Joanna, if we don't have any borders? Why do you have a passport? You can go wherever you want in the world. You don't need a passport, do you?
But so did one of the terrorists.
Oh, heavens above. I'd have a lovely day, madam. That's it. There you go. And Joanna's a nice lady. So did one of the terrorists. What? What have we done? Answer, we've taken back control. Dave's in Westcott. Dave, what's going on?
Well, a couple of points on your argument. I mean, the first point is that Donald Trump is basically saying that other NATO members are not paying the 2% of GDP that they should be paying into the club. So that's the first negotiating tactic he's saying. He's saying, why should we have young kids from Milwaukee go and die in Estonia? When
Merkel was elected.
Let me finish.
No, because you're ignorant. Merkel was elected on a manifesto pledge to raise the GDP spending on NATO. You knew that, Dave.
No, but there's 2 points. The first point is it hasn't.
Okay, well, let's have the second point.
The second point is you're arguing about a bloc of 27 countries. You're arguing on your own terms about the most powerful country in the world, or in Europe. You said Germany, and you said she was possibly the most powerful person in the world.
Woman.
So why can't 27 countries create their own defence union in terms of replacing NATO? What's your problem with that?
I don't know what you're talking about, is my first problem.
Well, look, NATO is separate from the EU. If the EU want to create their own defence mechanism separate from NATO, and they've got 27 countries, and the richest country in Europe is Germany...
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, clearly you don't, because you haven't thought it through. What you're saying...
Well, that might be the reason, Dave, but I'm not going to put my money on that just yet.
Well, I think you should. On the first hand, you said we need NATO. On the second hand, you've defined 27 countries, wealthy European industrialised countries headed by Germany.
They're not all like that.
Cannot look after their own defence within the European Union.
So are you telling me that we don't need NATO?
No, I didn't say that. I believe we do need NATO.
I don't know what you're saying, and nor do you.
Yes, I do.
So we do need NATO, but we don't need to be in it.
If they want to replace NATO, they've got the power.
Who wants to replace NATO?
Well, Angela Merkel, clearly, because she's coming up with the idea. The second point was
Mate, what are you actually talking about?
Well, it's obviously difficult for you to understand too.
You're telling me it is. So Angela Merkel doesn't like NATO, and Donald Trump does.
No, she likes other people paying for NATO, and that's what she's complaining about.
And she got elected on a platform of saying, I want to pay more into NATO.
Well, I'd love to pay more to you to go on holiday, but I haven't got the money, and I just find other things to do with it.
I'm going to say goodbye to you now, Dave, and you're going to go away. You're going to go away convinced that you've made a really good point and that I've willfully and deliberately ignored it, aren't you?
You don't like arguing the facts.
I can't argue with you, Dave. I have no idea what you're talking about.
What I'm saying is NATO is better than anything else, but if we don't have NATO, the European defence can all get together and 27 countries can pay for it themselves. Job done.
Yeah, you've said it again, OK?
I have. Thank you.
Great point. Absolutely no clue. And Dave convinced he's a genius. And that's why we are where we are as a country. So Dave thinks I'm rude or talking over him or interrupting him. Absolutely, no one listening has got a clue what he said. He's misunderstood some comments under an article on the Daily Mail website, thinks he's Henry Kissinger.
Look, it says mood swings. I keep telling you about Jamie's mood swings. Oh, and look here, weight loss. Jamie must have lost 2 stone since Christmas.
Oh, and look here, unexplained absences. He keeps disappearing with these new friends of his. We've never met them.
Do you think Jamie could be on drugs? Mr. Rutherford, the editor of the Daily Mail will see you now.
I see. That explains everything.
John's in Belfast. John, what made you pick up the phone?
Hi there, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good, John. What's on your mind?
I picked up the phone because I was thinking that these guys who carry out these attacks, or even those girls who go off to become jihadi brides in the Islamic State, that they're almost victims themselves in all of this. I remember you were saying that we should only blame these people who carry out the attacks.
And the people who support and recruit them. Are just not anybody who has absolutely nothing to do with them. There's a temptation to lash out at the nearest target, and the nearest target in these sort of cases will be brown and probably wearing a headscarf.
Right, but I would argue that our anger and our blame should be directed not at the individuals themselves, but instead at the ideology that propels them, which is political Islam. These guys aren't actually that interested in, dividing us or causing us to hate. They're pretty much only interested in guaranteeing their place in paradise by dying as a martyr during jihad. And as you were saying, there's a big hole in the heart of this generation and in this culture, I think, where our sense of identity should be. And I guess for 2 generations, we've been taught to be ashamed of our civilizational inheritance. To be ashamed of being English, you can't be.
I've never been taught. I've never been taught that. Where did you go to school?
Try fly the English flag, and you get all kinds of stuff. Ask a Muslim if they're.
What happened to you, John? When you flew an English flag, who had a go at you? Because we'll go after them on your behalf.
You don't get taught. You don't think we get taught that the empire was evil and that we're just a terrible racist, xenophobic.
I did Byzantium for my history A level. I was looking at Constantinople and the rule of Charlemagne. So when were you taught that the empire was evil? What school were you at?
It's not just the history lessons. It's part of the general culture.
Right. So you've never ever got into trouble for waving an English flag, and you've never ever been taught that the empire is evil.
I've seen it. Well, I have. I've heard it many times from many different people.
Okay, well, they're not. They're wrong. Elements of the empire were bad. Elements were good. John, what point do you think you're making, my friend?
Okay, my point is that when you get this situation where you have that hole in the heart of so many young people, where we've lost Christianity by and large, we've lost patriotism, then don't be surprised.
What was it yesterday? What day?
Let me
no, hang on. I just want to ask you a question, because I agree with you about Christianity. What was yesterday's feast day?
I'm not a Christian.
Pardon?
I'm just saying. What was yesterday's feast day?
You just said we've lost Christianity, as if that's an answer to Islamist terrorism. So tell me what yesterday's feast day was.
Young people, by and large, are not
okay, so let's be clear. You don't know that it was Pentecost yesterday. You've never waved an England flag and got into trouble, and no one's ever taught you that the empire was evil. Mate, you need to get your head... I've lasted for an hour without getting cross with anybody, and I'm not going to get cross with you. I'm going to give you some very, very useful advice. Get your head out your backside, sharpish. Wayne's in Chelmsford. Wayne, what's Vince Cable missing?
Hello. I believe it's not about economics. It's solely about migration. And if there is a slight downturn, then that's a small price to pay for controlling your own borders and making your own laws.
And when you have it explained to you that under European Union law, it's perfectly permissible to deport people from other European Union countries if they fail to find work here after 3 months, or if they can't prove that they've got sufficient capital to sustain their lifestyle here. So when it's explained to you factually that the whole controlling our borders argument was utterly bogus, just go to Belgium, try and set yourself up over there without a job as a Brit, then what happens?
Well, the way I look at it is I lived in Australia for a few years. And,
where?
And if I went to Australia,
yes,
and if I wanted to go back to Australia, I would have to prove I can speak English. I'd have to have a certain amount in the bank. I'd have to have medical tests. I'd have to have a skill what is on a list, what they need. And why can't we apply them things here?
Yes, well, you must have misunderstood my question. I've just told you we can. They do in Belgium, they do in Germany. So when it's been explained to you that it was successive British governments who failed or elected not to enact European Union rules that are in place and enacted by other countries, so the whole control our borders argument falls to pieces. At that point, Vince Cable thinks people will be bright enough to realise they were wrong. Why is Vince Cable... What is he missing? Why aren't people bright enough to realise they were wrong when they're presented with incontrovertible evidence that the borders argument is bogus, Wayne?
I believe earlier you were saying it's more about economics.
No, mate, I'm talking about all of the arguments that have been used to defend the position that you just described have been shown to be wrong. You go to Belgium, you don't provide evidence that you've got a job, you've got 3 months at the end of which you will be removed from the country. I mean, the obvious reason, as you know, why British governments haven't done it is because it would cost a hell of a lot more to impose that policy than we would gain, because EU migrants, Wayne, as you know, are net contributors to the economy. So once it's been explained to people, like the ones you described, that we can control who works here and who has to leave, why do people persist in shouting the same argument?
You might well be right with that. And
no, I am completely and utterly. Right. So once it's been shown that that's right, why do some people still say, no, that's wrong?
3 months is too long.
3 months is too long?
Yeah.
Okay.
If they're, you know...
So how are we going to cope with holidays?
Huh?
What if people want to come here on holiday?
If you want to go to Australia, you get a holiday visa.
And how much would it cost, do you think, to impose holiday visas on European Union countries? And what would we need to go to France?
£30 there.
What would we need to go to France?
I don't know. I don't really want to go to France.
That's the answer, isn't it? No, that's brilliant. That's the answer. I don't know whether you're being serious or not. But the thing,
I am being serious. I don't want to go to France.
or Germany, or Spain, or Italy, or Greece.
No.
Or Scandinavia, and that's the point. So when I say what does Vince Cable miss, he misses the existence of people like you who don't want to go to France and think that that's a political position.
Yeah, maybe.
And in terms of being demonstrably poorer, that's a good thing because...
Oh, I don't believe that either. I think that it's possibly you may have a dip for a few years, but then I think in the long run we'll be fine.
What do you base that on?
I agree with that.
What do you base that on?
That's just my belief.
Yeah, but what do you base it on?
Well, I haven't got any hard scientific facts in front of me.
Well, just give me some soft, unscientific facts then.
Well, we used to own 3/3 of the world.
3/3? That's the whole world, Wayne.
2/3 of the world. We used to own 2/3 of the world, and we are a massive trading country.
Yes, but only because we're part of the largest single market on the planet.
Yeah, but that's only so many countries in the world, and that's a demising market. That market.
It's a what? It's a demising market.
Well, the rest of the world's markets are thriving. And
no, the European Union. We now have the worst performing economy in the European Union since voting to leave, and of course we haven't actually left yet.
Right.
Worse than Greece. But you don't want to go there, so it doesn't matter.
Well, I've heard they've got massive problems in Greece with you can't go to certain beaches because they're full of tents.
Yeah.
They're full of tents with migrants on them. I've heard that Greece has been absolutely ruined because of the EU.
You know what economic growth means?
Pardon?
You know what economic growth means when you were just talking about how all the other countries are doing really well?
Yes.
Outside the European Union.
Yeah.
And now, in an attempt to somehow defend that position, you're talking about tents.
Oh, what are you on about?
I think you may have got that one the wrong way around, Wayne.
No.
So to clarify, you believe...
Are doing well, and there's other countries what are not.
What are not what?
You can't say because some countries outside the EU are doing well that they're all doing well. That's ridiculous. That's absurd.
Well, I'm going to leave it there. You should try out France, though, Warren. Where do you normally go for your holidays?
I usually try and go out the EU. It's too expensive now. We've gone into the euro.
Wayne, I love you, mate. And that, Vince, I'm afraid, is precisely, in one single phone call, everything you're missing. So you're either with Wayne or you're rational.
There hasn't been any evidence proven yet that there was a Russian hack in the US election.
Yeah.
The DNC servers, the Clinton campaign servers, have been refused access from the FBI 13 times. And I just feel that, they're going after Trump. It's like the Corbyn supporters here. They lost the election, but they're trying to resist and do as many things as possible to object. And I just feel exactly the same is happening in America.
Okay, so Ollie, put aside the issue of whether or not the Russians hacked the democratic email system and servers, and let's just focus on this particular meeting itself.
No problem.
Yeah, the meeting was set up with the explicit wording that this was on behalf of the Russian government who wants to support President Trump over Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Would you, Ollie?
If you have a
hold on, let me ask you my question. I haven't asked my question yet. Would you, Ollie, if in the middle of the general election we just had, would Ollie from Leicester, if Ollie from Leicester received an email from the Russians saying, Ollie from Leicester, we want to meet you to offer you some information against Theresa May so that Comrade Corbyn can win, would you accept that meeting?
If they said that there were possible crimes that they could pass on to me that could be exposed, of course I would do, and this is the problem. Hillary Clinton
you would okay. Before you talk about the problem, I just want to understand you've answered it. You'd be perfectly happy to meet with a foreign government that's offering you information to interfere with your country's general election.
If it was to expose a possible crime of someone who had a very, very colourful background...
No, you don't know what it's to expose because they haven't told you what the information is yet. They're just saying it's useful.
We knew at that stage the Uranium One deal had taken place, which was
No, but the email didn't say that, Ollie. All the email said was it was going to help Trump against Hillary.
We knew that. And the WikiLeaks have exposed...
No, but we didn't. No, but Ollie, we didn't know what this meeting was about. Ollie, we didn't know...
Maajid, please let me finish.
Please be precise.
The emails have showed that the DNC have indeed colluded with the Ukrainians to try and expose Paul Manafort. That's all in the WikiLeaks. And indeed, the DNC also tried to arrange closed-door, off-the-record meetings with the Chinese.
Ollie, this is not about the DNC. This is about whether it's permissible to meet with a foreign government who are offering you information in the middle of an election about your rival without telling you what that information is.
I've just given you two examples where the other side of the election tried to have two meetings, one with the Ukrainians conspiring against Paul Manafort.
And I'll repeat what I've just said to you, Ollie. This isn't about the... Do you think I supported Hillary? Look, Hillary Clinton has so many things wrong with her. This isn't about Hillary Clinton at the moment. You're acting like one of these people who, when yesterday I said the Tories have got a problem with racism, all these Tories called in and said, why don't you ever criticise Labour? When only the day before I did a whole segment calling Corbyn's Labour the new nasty party. Today we're talking about Donald Trump Jr., the son, and his meeting, purportedly with Russian government officials to interfere in the US election campaign. Maybe tomorrow we'll talk about Hillary Clinton. I've spoken about Hillary lots.
Please can I respond to that? If Donald Trump's son had met with the Russians and they had passed over a file of incriminating evidence of vast laws that had been broken by Hillary Clinton, and they had come out, that would have been a very good thing for democracy, because truth would have prevailed. But unfortunately, the story's getting twisted to try and smear a campaign when, as I've said before, the real heart of all this Russian hysteria, which was Podesta's emails getting leaked, the FBI has asked...
Have you heard of the word... Ollie, have you heard of the word whataboutery?
Go on.
Have you heard of the word whataboutery?
No, I haven't. Go on, enlighten me.
Whataboutery is a concocted word made up to describe people who, when presented with a mistake or an error that somebody makes, say, well, what about them? Like in the school playground, when a child is told they're doing something wrong and the child cries and points at their friend and says, well, what about what he did? And the point is, that's exactly what you're doing right now. You're going on a whataboutery tirade about Hillary Clinton and the Podesta emails. If you go back to the podcasts of my show, I can assure you I did entire segments talking about the failures and the failings, not only of President Obama's foreign policy, but of Hillary Clinton and her campaign.
Maajid, you're presenting me with one case about Donald Trump Jr. and the Russian government.
And I'm asking you whether it's treason to meet a foreign government when they offer to interfere in your domestic politics. Is that treason?
Maajid, listen to what I'm saying. I'm giving you two cases, one against the Ukrainian government colluding with the DNC.
Oh, my God, Ollie, this is it. This is whataboutery again. Can we stick to the topic, please?
It's not.
Of course it is. That's the very definition of whataboutery. It's to point to other people when we're trying to have a specific conversation about a specific bunch of people, Ollie. And if you're not going to answer that question, and if you're not going to stick to the topic, then we'll move on. But I'm giving you plenty of time to stick to the topic. The two cocoa fallacy is to constantly talk about other people's faults when we're discussing your fault right now. And so I'm going to ask you that one more time. Is it treason to meet a foreign government when they offer to give you information about your own domestic elections?
If it is, the Clinton campaign should also be standing against those charges.
You just did it again. The whataboutery in this one is strong, dear Luke. You just did it again. Ollie, please understand the two cocoa fallacy. Please understand what it means to constantly say, but they did it too. I'm not defending the Podesta leaks and Clinton. In fact, you know what? I couldn't stand looking at her on the television whenever she came on, because I know what she's done in her foreign policy. I know what she did as Secretary of State. That's not the point. The point isn't Clinton at the moment. That's not what we're talking about, because that's not the news agenda today. Today, the news agenda is Donald Trump Jr. admitting that he met with people purportedly from the Russian government who said specifically they were coming to offer information to him as the Russian government against his rival in an election campaign. And when I said to you, is that treason? You said, if it is, but... You seem unable to specifically address that question. Do you think it's treason to take information from a foreign government against your own election institutions and infrastructure in your country?
Trump's lawyer went on television last night and said that he can't see any law that's been broken. That's Jay Sekulow. I'm not a lawyer. I have to listen to him. He's Trump's legal advisor.
So again, not answering the question, but just quoting me other people. Well, I'll quote you someone. Nick Ackerman, the former Watergate prosecutor, said there's no question this is treason. So lawyer versus lawyer. I was asking your opinion, not Nick Ackerman's opinion, and not Trump's lawyer's opinion.
Is that Nick Ackerman, who's also a senior? He's also contributed large amounts of money to Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Wow. The back with the whataboutery. Back with the whataboutery. The only reason I quoted you Nick Ackerman is because you quoted Trump's lawyer, Ollie. And is that Trump's lawyer who's on Trump's payroll? You see, two can play at that game, which is why precisely I was asking you your opinion, your personal opinion, not Trump's lawyer's opinion and not Nick Ackerman's opinion. But you seem unable for the last however long it's been, and we've gone over time on this. I've given you lots of time to answer that question, and everyone was listening to you, and you were completely unable, unwilling, or whatever the unword here that is relevant that works is, to answer that question. But thank you for calling in. That's Ollie there from Leicester. You're listening to Maajid Nawaz here on LBC.
4 minutes after 11. At least that's what employers tell me. Eh? They could all be wrong. Lee's in Bromley. Lee, what would you like to say?
Yeah, good morning, James.
Hello, mate.
You're an hard man to get through to, you are. Right. I can't understand why it's took us so long, but perhaps that's just politicians as a whole, because they all seem a bit slow, if you know. They're all probably privately educated. They probably want to go back and get a refund, because when it comes to common sense, they just ain't got any. So that's that out of the way. But I'm confused, as in immigration, even for Indigenous people, that you're paying out so much money for them, but they're only paying so much tax, national insurance. How can it be of a benefit? So if you just listen to this. So someone's earning £300 a week. He might get deducted £70 a week tax and national insurance, but he's got 2 kids. So he gets 30 quid back straight away in child benefit because he's got 2 kids. Then, because his money ain't that good, he probably gets £20 a week child tax credit. Yeah? So now we're £50 a week, where all we're getting now is 20. Then 2 kids go to school. So even if you say £25 a week each, that's 50. We're now minus £25.
I think the figure is about 55% for people in Britain who are net takers from the economy, but the average for an EU migrant worker is that they're net contributors.
Oh no, I'm not just talking like immigrants.
No, nor am I. 55% of the whole country, because you have to include pensioners as well once you start claiming your pension. So it's about 55% of us take out more than we put in.
Right. So how, like?
But EU migrants buck that trend because they're largely harder working and younger, so they're actually net contributors on average.
Yeah, but you still get the same benefit. That's part of EU law. They still get the same benefit.
That's what net contribution means. That's the number you're left with after you subtract what's taken out from what's put in.
Right, all right. That was just part of my confusion then. So
well, I'm glad to clear that up. What did you ring in to tell me?
But then also, we have got 1.5 million people unemployed, so surely it makes sense to get them working first. You know, you don't give them...
Well, hang on, that's a great point. I'm glad someone's finally made it. Matt's in Richmond. Matt, are you an employer?
I am indeed, yeah.
And what sort of role do EU workers... Stay where you are, Lee. What sort of role do EU workers play in your business?
Huge. Without them, I couldn't trade.
Well, why can't you just hire some of these 1.5 million unemployed people?
But a year and a half ago, when all this started kicking off, I've got 90% of my staff are Eastern European. And I thought, you know, we're going to lose a few. So let's start trying to employ some of our 1.5 million unemployed, or indeed, ignoring the unemployed for a minute, let's try and employ some of the employed British guys into the construction industry, into my business. Have I been able to find any who are actually any good? No.
Wait there, Lee. Can you put Matt in touch with some of these people? Do you think?
Well, I don't know what he's looking for. What sort of workers is he looking for? I don't know. I'm in the same boat. I could do with a lot of lorry drivers, but you can't get them.
Say that again?
Because the industry's been decimated.
Well, hang on a minute. You just said that the 1.5 million unemployed people should be doing the jobs, and now you're telling me you can't find people yourself.
Yeah, because who pays for the training?
Oh,
this fella's in building. Now he's obviously looking for bricklayers and that.
Yeah, but you just said all of these migrant workers could be replaced by the 1.5 million unemployed people.
Have you not heard of apprenticeships? We don't do apprenticeships anymore. We used to do, but do you know what? When I was at school,
so who's going to do the jobs, Lee? Tomorrow?
Well, it's not happening tomorrow, is it?
Well, okay, March 2019 then. Who's going to do the jobs if we stop freedom of movement?
all right. But it's just not everyone's a brain surgeon, not everyone's a bricklayer. You're telling me the 700,000...
Who's going to do all the jobs if we stop freedom of movement? Who's going to work for Matt? Who's going to drive the trucks, Lee?
Well, at the moment, we're stuck, but part
So
of
you've rung me up to tell me... Hang on a minute. Even by the standards of this programme, this is a bit special. You've rung me up to tell me that all of the jobs currently being done by European emigres could be done by 1.5 million unemployed, and you've ended by telling me that you can't even find drivers for your own business.
Right. So you're not listening. This is what you do. You're very good. You're very clever.
Here we go. Now we'll talk about me for 5 minutes, because it's a lot more...
No, honestly, you're not that important.
Yeah,
right.
Come on then.
This has gone on for years, James. So we've had like 1.5, 2 million people unemployed for years. We're not just talking like, oh, we've only got 2 years to like get these jobs filled.
We've always had unemployment, Lee. It's as long as we've had jobs.
Right. So Blair opened the floodgates. Only 30, 40,000...
Hang on, what was unemployment in 1979, Lee?
No, I'm talking Blair. He was 97.
No, I'm talking pre-Blair, because you said he opened the floodgates. What was unemployment in 1979?
Off the top of my head, I was 8, so I don't really know.
All right. What was it in 1998?
Again, to be honest, I was working. I didn't really pay a lot of attention.
But then you can't use it as evidence for an argument if you don't know, Lee.
Well, you can do. So,
all right, of course you can.
Right, so, no, just listen, and then you'll get my point.
That's not certain.
Right, so Blair opened the floodgates back in 98, 2000, whenever it was.
Well, when was it? You tell me, because it must have made a massive difference to your life.
Figure on it then. Oh, no, 2000 then.
Right, was it 2000?
Just say, for instance.
No, you have to tell me when it was, because it made such a huge impact on your life. If you can't remember, then you're going to make yourself look a bit silly, Lee.
It don't really matter what year it is.
Okay. So it was massive, but you can't remember when it was?
No, I didn't say it was massive. You're putting words in my mouth.
Well, floodgates are pretty big. Floods are generally considered to be large quantities of water. Maybe I misunderstood you. Maybe a flood isn't a large quantity of water in Bromley.
Well, it was. It went from 30, 40,000 to 700,000.
When?
But according to you, it had no effect on
Well,
anything.
no, when did that happen? And it had a huge effect on things. Matt, if it wasn't for European immigration, am I right in thinking you wouldn't be in business at all?
We would struggle with that correct plan.
There you go, Lee. It had a massive impact. No one's saying it didn't have a massive impact. Matt wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for those floodgates opening.
Right. But perhaps when them floodgates did open, if we was trained in our own people back then, they'd be qualified now.
Yes. Now you've made a really good point. So what we need is a time machine.
All right. So you're just twisting.
I'm not, Lee.
You're like,
I'm holding up a mirror,
really
mate.
Good.
I'm holding up a mirror.
You're really good.
I'm holding up a mirror.
Again, because you do, honestly. You're
Look in the mirror, Lee.
Okay. Oh, well, let's talk. All right.
Look in the mirror, Lee.
I want to get at. Can I just get one thing out?
Nope.
All right. Fair enough.
Oh, go on then.
All right. Petrol prices.
No, I've changed my mind again. No, I haven't. No, you do it. Talk about petrol prices. Go on.
It'll take 2 minutes. Right. After Brexit, the next day, petrol prices went up. You was on the radio, always listen to you, even though I want to punch you, but I think you're brilliant. But
I think threats of violence probably constitute a line, don't they, Lee?
That's just no. Don't take that as real. That's
well, you've said it out loud in front of 814,000 people. I think you've lost the right to contrip to a sensible, grown-up discussion.
That's not what I meant.
What did you mean when you said you wanted to punch me?
That's just honestly, if I see it, I would not punch.
Well, what did you mean when you said it, Lee?
It's just because you're infuriating.
Well, no. What did you mean when you said you wanted to punch me?
Oh God, really? Honestly, can I just take that back then? Can you just accept an apology? I'm sorry I said that. I'll take that back. Obviously, I wouldn't do anything like that.
How do I know?
Figure of speech. Oh God, really? Can you just let me get my point out?
Well, you just threatened to punch me.
Seriously?
Yeah, you did, seriously.
Oh, God. It's just...
Go on then, make your point about petrol, Lee.
Right, so you blamed Brexit for petrol prices.
No, I didn't.
The very next day.
No, I didn't. That was the fall in the pound. The fall in the pound was responsible for petrol prices going up.
OK, fine. But nothing to do with greedy oil companies. Because just listen to this point. You remember when it was all going down, and it went down to £1 a litre? Yeah?
Yeah.
Right. So it went down, didn't it? But it weren't going down at the pump. So the AA, oh no, because like there's still the dear stuff in the pump. It's going to take a couple of weeks to get through. All right, fair enough. We all accepted that. So don't that work the other way? So just because the pan went down, the stuff that's still in the pumps should have been the same price, surely. But they just, oh no, because pan, we'll put it up. But you bought it and said, oh yeah, it's because the pan, because of Brexit, that's why it's gone up. So we're all going to have to pay more money for petrol. That should have took 2-3 weeks to go through.
Well,
again.
You're suggesting that it was 2 or 3 weeks difference.
Yeah, but you just blamed it straight on Brexit.
No, I didn't, Lee. I explained why the price of petrol, if it's imported from overseas and is generally traded in dollars, then a fall in the pound will impact immediately on petrol pump prices. Do I think that petrol suppliers are also greedy? Yes, I do. They don't cancel each other out, Lee. Can I ask you a personal question? I did, Lee. I did. I've explained it endlessly, but people sometimes don't hear. They only hear what they want to hear. If someone says to you later today, what were you doing this morning? You say, I found that O'Brien bloke on the radio, and they say, how did it go, mate? What are you going to say to them, just out of interest?
I got mugged up a bit. But that's what I said. You're really good at what you do.
Why mugged off? Why can't you just say, he explained some stuff to me, and I realised why I was wrong?
Yeah, but you do.
And then I told him I wanted to hit him.
Oh, come on! I've already took that back.
In some circles, threats of violence are a little bit out of the ordinary. Thankfully, I'm used to it, Lee, but not everybody is. So watch your mouth next time.
Frankie's on the line from Uxbridge. Tell us what you think, Frankie.
Maajid, thank you for talking about this issue. I just want to speak on behalf of the British public. We're absolutely sick to our stomachs of this. We've had enough. We see it as a Islamic ideology issue, a Muslim problem. The press don't call a spade anymore. We've got political correctness gone mad. We've got the press calling it an Asian problem when it's clearly a Muslim problem. We've got rapes increasing all over Europe, and that's obviously to do with the immigration of the Middle East coming into Europe.
Can I just mention something, Frankie?
Sure.
The reason I held this topic, clearing my throat. The reason I held this topic is precisely so that people like you could vent what is clear frustration and anger at the situation, and so that I could talk to you, because you may well, hearing from your frustration, you may well also have the view that it isn't being spoken about openly and frankly. And I would just ask you to pause and consider that the LBC presenter speaking about it openly is himself a British Pakistani Muslim, and the man responsible for convicting the most high-profile case of these grooming gangs was none other than also a British Pakistani Muslim, Nazir Afzal.
I know this.
So I'm just making an appeal, not directly to you, Frankie, to everyone listening as well, that we keep in mind that it's all of us on the side of secular democratic values against people that violate those values, and there are good people on both sides of that. Bad people on one side of that divide, and good people of all religions on the secular side of that divide as well.
Yes, you're quite right. But it's very difficult for the British people to be compassionate towards Muslims when they see that everywhere Islam goes, they're trying to dominate and change the societies that they move into. We've got Muslim women taking British companies and people to court because they're not allowing them to wear their burqas, and it's just, we're sick of it. If they're not integrating, the 4% that we've got here are causing massive issues. Imagine when the percentage increases and we've got more Muslims. We just feel like the British people are being silenced. We're not allowed, the media won't let us talk. We've got Sadiq Khan taking people to court on the internet for hate crimes, hate speech against Muslims. It's just absolutely gone crazy.
I mean,
the government
so Frankie, the important thing to remember is, I think part of the neglect has been that people like me and others, people that have a platform, what we need to start doing is openly and strongly advocating for democratic, secular, liberal values. And I think that helps with integration. What's been happening in the 90s with the doctrine that was known as multiculturalism is that we were celebrating our differences rather than celebrating what we had in common. So this British Pakistani Muslim has lots in common with someone like you and others in this country. But if we keep celebrating how we are different, then our communities grow together apart. And the better way to get integration and to get social cohesion is if we start instead celebrating the values we share. And I think that, of course, we still have differences, but if we start celebrating the values that we have in common and the values we share that make this country so great, that's a way to make sure that the glue that holds our society together, that the ideals, the social contract, if you like, that we all have and how we all live together based on those shared values get constantly reinforced. And I just worry that sometimes they weren't being reinforced enough in the 90s, in the period that is now known as kind of, the multiculturalism.
But can I just make a point?
Yeah.
Islam ideology does not mix with the British culture. It's like oil and water. They will never mix.
Well, I don't know if you can
cannot
speak
come and
about
live in
Islam
this
as one
country.
thing, Frankie, though. I think it's
You cannot come and live in Britain and hold concrete, tightly hold to your values. You have to adapt to our way. If you want to live in this country, why are we eating halal meat? British people don't want to eat halal.
You don't have to, Frankie. I'm sure you.
No, we do. It's not labelled. It's fed to our children at schools.
Well,
we have no choice.
So I think Frankie, listen. So just to please, I'm somebody addressing these issues, right? And so my appeal to you will be, when you're speaking about it, it's important not to speak of Islam as a monolithic block of something that can't be read in different ways.
This is how we feel.
Yeah, I know, I understand that, which is why I'm addressing the topic.
Everybody is so angry.
Yeah.
We just want you all out. And when I say you, I mean Islam and the problem it's causing.
Yeah,
not
but you
individual Muslims, because I know that they're good. But Islam is not welcome in Britain.
See, when I talk about reinforcing the values that we have in common, one of them, Frankie, I'm sure you'll agree, is freedom of religion.
And freedom of speech, and British people are being silenced and shut down.
Well, you're not. You're here on this radio station. No one's silencing you. But I'm asking you: is freedom of religion important to you?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we've got to devise together, people like you and me and others in this country, is a way to practice whatever religion somebody wants to practice that is in harmony with our values, and that's the reform that I speak about.
Actually, I think religion should be banned.
Well, then you don't believe in freedom of religion, do you?
Well, it's causing so many issues, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think I'll tell you what, Frankie, where you and I will part ways is I'm as secular as they come. Liberal values are what matter to me. The only thing I preach, if I preach anything at all, is a respect for secular, liberal, democratic values. But part of that for me is the right for somebody else to be a religious conservative in their own private life, and I won't want to ban that.
I agree.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a difficult topic, so I'm split on my thoughts about it. But one thing I know is, from British person's perspective, Islam is causing huge issues in this country and now in Europe, and we don't want it. Go back to the Middle East and you cause your hell over there.
Yeah,
when you come to this country, you live by our rules and our ways. Don't try and change them.
Frankie, your words have consequences, and when you say we don't want you or go back to the Middle East, it's as bad as when an Islamist says something like, the West is decadent and full of debauchery and promiscuity. Words have consequences. And so when Islamists preach anti-Western stuff, you can see how the link between the hatred they're preaching, whether it's anti-Semitic or homophobic or, anti-woman, the hatred they're preaching and the behavior of extremists who then act out that hatred, you can trace it back to hate speech. And what I'm asking you to do is consider that when you say we don't want you lot in this country, and then you say, as an afterthought, I don't mean you, Maajid, but I mean the religion of Islam, I'm asking you just to consider that your own language has consequences as well. There's a way to speak about this topic which is a way that is sensible.
That's what everyone's doing. They're being pussyfooting around the issue and not calling a spade a spade.
All right.
Asians instead of Muslims.
Well, I haven't done that, Frankie. I haven't done that. And yet at the same time, I haven't said, all you lot leave the country. I think there's a way to speak about it without being, preaching hate or inciting people against one community or another. Otherwise, you become part of the problem rather than part of the solution. And that's exactly what we're trying to address here. I understand you're angry, and a lot of people are angry because we haven't been speaking about this as openly as we should have. But you can't confuse the right to speak about it openly with bigotry. Speaking about it openly doesn't mean we start adopting bigotry when speaking ourselves.
Speaking of threat, at one point you mentioned in a debate that there are no-go zones in the Netherlands, and that cars and politicians are being set on fire in the Netherlands.
I didn't say that. That is actually an incorrect statement. Yeah, we would call it fake news.
Is that
I
fake
never
news?
said that.
Because it's what you literally said.
No, it's not what I said.
The Islamic movement has now gotten to a point where they have put Europe into chaos. Chaos in the Netherlands. There are cars being burned. There are politicians that are being burned. And yes, there are no-go zones in the Netherlands.
You call it fake news. Obviously,
I didn't call that fake news. I didn't use the word this today.
No?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I did.
Okay, I think...
Dave has called from Saltash. Hi, Dave.
Hi. Some elements of your previous caller's points I think I kind of understood and agree with. And it's the point I was going to suggest was that it's the constant whining of the liberal people like yourself who seem to assume that racism is a colour issue or a cultural or a group issue. It is doing nothing to resolve the problem, but doing everything to perpetuate it. If you dislike somebody for their personality, but they happen to be from a particular cultural or ethnic group, it's the likes of your constant liberal whining that labels that as racism rather than simply disliking them as a person.
Why are you describing the conversations I have, this one and others, about race? Why are you describing it as liberal whining? I'm just having the same kind of conversation I have every day on air.
I think you've answered your own question.
No, I really haven't. I'd like you to. I'd like you to tell me why you regard me as whining rather than me having conversations.
Well, what are you doing to constructively sort of resolve the problem? If we continually highlight what, in your phraseology, racial prejudices, then all we do is create groups that feel either hard done by or disadvantaged in some respect, but actually they're identifying with a group rather than identifying with personal or group deficiencies that make them cohesive with the current society. Now, I'm sure you would not have a problem with a child or a family member of yours going to a school where 40 languages are spoken. Personally, I'd rather cut my head off than have that inflicted upon me.
Well, it depends entirely how that situation is managed. It's not. No, it
doesn't. It doesn't.
Well, it does, but anyway.
It does not entirely depend upon how the situation is managed. Massive amounts of resources from the education budget are diverted to non-English speaking elements.
Have you ever been in a school where that's the case, Dave?
I was in a long-term relationship with a teacher who was her specialisation was non-English speaking children in central London.
But have you ever been in a school where this is the case?
I wouldn't wish to.
Well, I have, you see. As a reporter, on a number of occasions, I went to different schools around the country for all kinds of reasons, and I came across this issue and how it was being handled. And how it's handled, like any situation in a school, matters enormously. If it's handled effectively and well, it not only makes no odds to the school in terms of performance standards, it enriches a school. If it's handled badly, it's problematic.
That's your view.
No, it's not my view. It's my lived experience, Dave. You're talking about someone you used to go out with. You're talking about someone you used to go out with. I'm telling you about schools I've been in and people I've spoken to and systems I've seen. It's not just my view.
The reason I use that example is because she was living that life on a day-to-day basis and recalling it, in our time together. So it's a fairly close understanding of the situation.
Well, it was maybe she was in a school where it was ineffectively managed. I'm talking about schools, one in particular in Leeds, where it was very well managed.
Okay. But the question then must be, why have we even allowed this circumstance to arise? How can it be to our benefit?
Well, I've told you how I think it can be to people's benefit. If there is a mixed group of people and it's managed well, it can absolutely be to our benefit. Do you only know people like you, Dave?
What do you mean by that?
What I'm saying is, if you know people who aren't like yourself or from the same background as yourself, that can be a very enriching experience, can't it?
I travelled extensively, worked, lived and loved all around the world, engaged with a great deal of cultures. I have a great deal of respect for all of them.
But you want to leave them where they are?
In their own place.
All right, Dave. Yeah, I think you've made it very clear. Thank you, Dave in Saltash. George in Hornchurch, hello.
Hello.
You're a racist.
Just to say to you, lady, that I'm a racist. I don't like blacks. I don't like Asians, not because of their colour, but because of the way they behave, their manner, their demeanour, and what they do.
How do they behave? And do they behave differently to each other or just differently to you?
Well, they've got their ways. Asians are very arrogant. Black people are very troublesome, infantile, lazy. I could go on, I've just spent 5 months in hospital for the first time in my life, and I had it all illustrated around me all the time. Most of the nurses there were black. They were lazy, incompetent, negligent, and nasty. They were all carried by the white nurses all the time. No one's got the bottle to say anything about it.
George, can I ask you, when you say all black people are this, all Asian people...
No, not all of them. There's some...
Oh, no, but you began by saying all. You said black people are lazy, Asian people are arrogant.
Well, I'm speaking most generally. Of course, there's the exception.
There's a danger in speaking most generally, because I know some... very lazy, annoying, unimpressive white people, but I don't conclude that white people are lazy, unimpressive and annoying.
Yeah, but when your experience en masse of them is always the same.
En masse in Hornchurch?
Yeah. I've just told you, I've just said it illustrates to me only too well the 5 months I spent in 3 different hospitals. And it was always the same. I got some appalling stories of black people that you wouldn't allow me to tell you.
Well, it's not that I wouldn't allow you to tell me them. I think we've heard very clearly your position on black people, your position on Asian people, George. And to be honest, the only reason I let George speak as freely as he did, in the way that he did, was I think it's important that we hear racism. We need to hear what it sounds like, I think. And I'm so sorry if anybody was listening to that and was deeply offended. He may have had some terrible nurses, but they're terrible nurses. They're not just black nurses. But wow, quite something. Rob has called from Binley in Coventry on this. Is this a decent compromise, Rob, or would you expect more?
I would expect more. I mean, I can't see what all the fuss is about. I mean, you look at all the past ones that have come in with all the controversy surrounding them. You've had King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, 2007, Robert Mugabe. That man was renowned for killing white farmers, the interest rate, the people are starving in his country. You've had Vlad the Entertainer, old Putin. He's come on over on a state visit. Look at the controversy surrounding him. So, what's the big deal?
That's what makes me think it's coming from Washington, not London.
I don't think it is. I think there's too many do-gooders, left-wingers, the Labours of this world are all kicking off about this big businessman from America who just happened to be right place, right time to become president of the United States of America, our biggest ally, our biggest partner in the world. And, where was all the kicking off? Saudi Arabia, look how many people, look at the people they put underfoot. Robert Mugabe, like I said, biggest tyrant of this planet. I'm surprised they don't get old Mr. North Korea a state visit.
I mean, one of the biggest tyrants of the planet, I would say.
Yeah, one of the biggest tyrants.
Well, but it's just a fact, isn't it? There's quite a few to choose from, sadly. I agree with you that I think it should be a state visit, but we probably think that for different reasons. But I'm still not convinced that the people you say are responsible for it being downgraded are the people responsible for it being downgraded, or we're calling it downgraded, presented differently. What makes you think it's them? What makes you think protesters have the power to do this?
Because the world has changed. You look at all the protests and stuff, and everything. The freedom of speech in this country, for starters alone, I don't think there is freedom of speech anymore. If I stood up on the box in Hyde Park in Speaker's Corner and started ranting on about where's the rights for white people, where's the rights for whatever, I'll be labelled as a racist.
What rights haven't you got, Rob? Are you white to start with?
I'm white, but
Yeah.
I've got no freedom of speech. Anyone, it's total it's like a reversed apartheid.
You've just called a national radio station to tell me your opinion. It doesn't really get much freer than that. Nobody's going to come round and arrest you.
I totally agree. I mean, yeah, I can say that over a radio station. I can go on telly interviews. I can be interviewed by a reporter in the street. I'm not going to get dragged up and put in jail. So that just makes me think there's something behind the scenes, obviously, that we can't see. We're not privy to. That's going on. But again, I hark back to my point about.
Sorry, do you mean in relation to Donald Trump, or do you mean in relation to everything?
In relation to everything.
What might that something be?
You know what? If I could do that, I'd be a millionaire. Put my finger on all the things that might be going on behind the scenes. But it just there's something that I really can't put my finger on, and I really don't see what all the fuss is about.
Is it possible that you can't put your finger on it because it's not there? That you actually do live in a free society where you can speak and say what you want to say? Because I know I live in a free society where I can say what I want to say. So which one do you live in?
Well, I live in a society where I can say whatever I like.
You've just told me you couldn't.
I will be, but I will be labelled. If I said anything controversial at work, I have a good chance of being sacked.
What kind of things would be controversial in your workplace?
Well, if I turn around and complained about another employee who was of a different race or colour, I would instantly be labelled as a racist and probably taken down a conduct by him. But in the reverse effect, and it's happened, someone said something about me who's a different race, they don't get nothing done to them.
Have you seen this happen, or is it like the imaginary problems you can't see in the background?
I've seen it happen. I know plenty of instances where the so-called usual racist, the racial card is played. He's picking on me because I'm whatever, and nothing gets done.
And what was the problem? That was somebody underperforming? Was somebody misbehaving towards you? What was the problem that this person?
Well, there's loads. We call them deadwoods, and they get nothing done, and they just happen to be of a different colour or a different race, and nothing gets said to them because they're scared to the bone of doing anything against them.
And you link this to Donald Trump's state visit, how? That you think there's some conspiracy to silence people like you?
I have. Well, I've always been told that I'm sometimes, you're a conspiracy theory and all this theorist, and I'm like, but again, if you're complaining about Mr. Trump being allowed into the country on a state visit, you need to stop all these Robert Mugabes coming in again.
Okay, Rob, thank you.
As a 17-year-old schoolboy, how is it that I know how to respect women better than some of our government ministers do?
Of course, the answer to your question, you said, why do I have to respect and for women and politicians don't, it does relate to what Kirsty said. It is because you don't have power yet. It is because you don't have power yet. And that is the basic problem we're dealing with. Kirsty's absolutely right about that. People exploit their power.
You cannot insinuate that because he is not powerful, then that's why he doesn't respect women. Respect of women should be a universal standard. It should be by politicians. Regardless, if you are powerful, if you are not powerful, it does not matter. So making that statement is perpetuating a very, very bad idea.
It is what you said, Charles. I'm sorry if I didn't make myself clear. I completely agree with that. The point I'm making is about the temptation that people get when they get into power. And this is what the abuse that has to be looked at all the time. It's not an excuse for it, but I'm explaining it.
Aditya, I think that's right. There is a cultural problem here
of trivialising women. Sometimes that expresses itself very violently. Sometimes it expresses itself in the pages of our newspapers and in our media. I'm a loyal reader of Charles Moore, so before I came on, like Kirsty, I did a bit of research, and I remember this piece that Charles wrote for The Spectator in 2015, just around the time of the Labour leadership election, and it was titled, "Have Yvette Cooper and Liz Kendall Got the Looks for the Labour Leadership?" And there was an amazing conclusion.
A writer never writes his own headline.
Amazing conclusion.
A writer never writes his own headline.
There was an amazing...
As you know, you're a journalist.
I do, but you did... I'm sure you wrote this bit, though. You said there is something quite appealing about Yvette Cooper, her slightly French crop and her black and white dress. Serious policies seriously discussed.
Tony in Windsor, hi.
I think most people don't really care. The only people that seem to care is the people who want to destabilise the government. And they're sort of going on about it ad nauseum.
You don't see any. You don't see any difficulty in a minister having meetings in Israel.
Technically, there's some grey areas. Obviously, I wouldn't admit it. It doesn't look very good. But the country's come to no harm. Nobody's in danger. Meanwhile, we've got politicians committing suicide.
You're conflating a lot there, Tony, and a lot of things thrown in together there.
What harm has Britain come to as a result of these meetings that weren't reported to this person or that person? None at all. You're just talking about technicalities, aren't you? The ministerial
no, because
yes.
Well, no, not necessarily, because is our bottom line now? We only, has Britain come to any harm? That there's such a thing as doing government the right way, isn't there?
Years ago, you wouldn't have known about this. These things probably happened 15, 20, 30 years ago. We like Twitter and social media.
Well, it was just good old-fashioned journalism that revealed the meetings. It wasn't Twitter or, it was good old-fashioned journalism. Tony, thank you for your call. Michael in Dulwich, hi.
Hello.
You want to support Theresa May?
Well, I'm saying, why don't these journalists who seems to think it's their business to expose everybody, why don't they mind their own business?
Well, that is their business.
But it isn't their business.
It is their business.
What, to expose the government? Our government's doing something. What do you think they're doing? Something to bring us down, to turn us into turnips? They're doing business. Business. Let me give you some. Someone from ICI or Shell or something like that. They have businesses. What they got to do? Tell all their minor shareholders what they're doing, and everyone. If they all let the woman do her own job. She's the best thing. She's a good Prime Minister, Theresa May. She's just haven't got the right people around her. And Priti Patel was doing what she thought was right for the country. She was having a deal with somebody.
You're not curious at all why a Secretary of State would be having meetings at that level in that country that the Prime Minister of Britain and her own colleagues didn't know about? You don't think that's odd?
Well, how do we know they knew it or they didn't know about it?
Well, it matters that we know, Michael. It matters that we know.
Look, any meeting, good will come of it. Any way you look at it, they're talking.
You're awfully trusting. You're awfully trusting, Michael.
I tell you what, I can't see anything wrong in Priti Patel or Theresa May. I think they're little patriotic people, and Stephen, I think his name is, the guy in the Jewish Chronicle. I mean,
Stephen Pollard,
look what I've found out. Look, let's talk about it.
Well, that's what journalists do. They find things out and they talk about them, and then they invite people like you to come and talk about it too. It's how it works. It's great fun. Thank you, Michael. Ron in Shepperton, hello.
Hello there. Hello, Sheila.
Hello. Should we see these papers?
No, definitely not.
Why?
Definitely not. Well, because it's as plain as, to quote the guy that's just spoke to you, it's as plain as the nose on your face. It's just another tactic for the Remainers to stall the negotiations. Now, can I ask you a question, Sheila, please? Do you believe in democracy?
I do.
Do you think that this is a democratic country?
Yes, it could be better, but it's in its democracy. But yes, I do.
Well, every democracy could be.
It's
better.
Flawed, yeah.
So why is everybody, or why are the Remainers still wanting us to keep in the least democratised system in the world.
Yeah, that's your argument about it. That's clearly how you would characterise it. But just to be clear on, I have never hidden that I voted to remain in the European Union, and I would rather that we didn't leave. But the reality is, I would still very much prefer, when we do leave, for it to be a good experience for the British people, for not one job to be lost. So if genuinely, and so if the to steal a term that Sir Christopher Mayer used about his position is similar to mine. He described himself as a pragmateer. He is, he's prepared to accept that Brexit's going to happen, as am I. If something came along to make that not the case, I'm not going to lie to you, I'd be pleased. But I would also rather Brexit happen well for this country. And I do think there are too many people who just say, oh, whatever, as long as it happens. Well, whatever, as long as it happens, is no way to run anything. It's no way to run a party, as in a fun party, a birthday party, let alone an entire nation's economy.
I totally agree with you on that. But on the same token, it's no way to run negotiations by the media.
But it's not the media. I mean, no, but it isn't by the media, because obviously I as a journalist on a talk show, I'm going to talk about Brexit. What I'm talking about is elected representatives seeking, on the behalf of the people that they represent, to see these papers. That's not the media. That's democracy.
No. Up to a point.
No, totally. Not up to a point. Totally.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I up to a point. This country survived 1974 years before we went into the EU, and when we went in, it was it called the EU then? It was a common market, a trading agreement. Now this is how democratically the union runs. Is we've gone from a trading agreement to almost a federal state with no
vote on that.
No vote, no discussion, the media, no...
Yeah, and I don't doubt that Britain can survive, and I don't doubt that Britain can thrive in the future. I still think it is reprehensible to not ask questions about the harm, short to medium term harm, that may be done to the economy, because the economy isn't the economy. The economy is people. So it is completely wrong not to discuss what obstacles might get in the way of the people of this country thriving after Brexit. It's a normal human thing to do. And for people to say we shouldn't do it is to not care about their fellow citizens.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. Yes, question, but don't try... I'm not accusing you of this, but don't try...
Everyone else is.
Sorry?
Everyone else is. Oh dear.
No, question everything. Absolutely, perfectly right. But don't
suffocate it.
A trial by media.
Don't suffocate the process. Ron, thank you for your call. Lovely conversation with Ron in Shepperton. Let me read a couple of the texts you've been sending in about the whole question of whether these Brexit impact papers should be released or not. Finn in Coventry says, FGS, I think that means for God's sake. Ramona's wanting papers released that can compromise our negotiating position just to try to get public opinion to change our minds. We will never, regardless of these forecasts, which are never right, i.e. the Euro project fear, etc. I'm not sure what that bit makes sense, but I read it, truthfully. Sick of this rubbish. Let's get on with it, says Finn. Bish, bash, bosh. Doug has called from Russell Square. We'll hear from Tony in a few minutes as well. But, Doug, I wanted to get you in first because you've been patiently waiting to tell me what you think about the state of the British government. Is it in trouble?
Well, that's a very presumptuous statement, Sheila, that you're making. You're obviously just assuming that they are in trouble. Well, you're saying if they're in trouble or not. Who says they are in trouble? Just because somebody resigned. Let's put it into perspective for 1 second for your listeners. At the end of the day, in the election, the Conservatives won more seats and more share of the vote than any other party. Labour seems to think that they won the election and have the right to go to Brussels and be a de facto in waiting government in case everything collapses with Theresa May. Now, I want to put you and James O'Brien straight.
Okay, I'll be sure to pass it on to him.
Make sure you do. Because obviously some people choose to, for some reasons unknown to anybody else, want to ignore the vote and think of this as everything is in trouble, that the world is going to end if Britain is no longer in the European Union. Well, let me put you straight. For hundreds of years, this country has survived perfectly well without the need to piggyback on some European super state. And for you and your colleague to imply that for some reason we had a vote and now we want to know exactly what's going to happen when we leave, and you know, the mechanisms and the mechanics of it all. Get real. This is happening whether you like it or not. The mechanics are inconsequential to anything people do in life. If I cross the road, I have to decide if I'm going to make it or if a bus is going to run me over. That's the reality, Sheila. Get over it.
Okay, right. Can I say something back to you?
Absolutely.
I don't believe the world will end, even if we go out with a hard Brexit with not a single deal under our belt. I don't believe that Britain will go to the dogs on a permanent basis if we leave the European Union either, because you are right to say that we have survived as a great nation during many phases of our existence. So I don't believe either of those two things. But I do believe that there is a constructive way to do Brexit and a destructive way to do Brexit. And the destructive way is the one that asks no questions and walks out the door.
Well, I'm sorry, Sheila. What you're doing is undermining every move of this Conservative government and looking for any mechanism in which to suggest that the government is falling to pieces.
Doug.
It's not happening.
Doug, two cabinet ministers lost within a week. Hang on a second. Let me finish my list of problems that the government faces at the moment.
Yeah, all you have is a list of problems, Sheila. You're very negative. Very negative.
It's the job of journalists to look at problems and ask about them.
Someone who's not happy with the vote.
Are you always this angry when you have conversations?
Yes, I am, especially with people like you.
Oh. Well, there you go. 1-0 to me, I'd say, wouldn't you? 0345 6060 973, the number to call. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC. And if Doug doesn't mind, I'll continue with that list of problems in conversation with you after this short break. It's a bit worrying, isn't it, when the level of anger that Doug, my previous caller, exhibits is what we can expect. Quite a lot, actually, around conversations on Brexit. And I don't think it's necessary. You can have wildly different views to me. And I can have wildly different views to you. And we can thrash them out. That's the whole point of a programme like this. But just for somebody to ring and berate you for asking questions about the government of the day just seems like somebody who can't possibly have lived in Britain for the previous however many years. Thank you for your call all the same, Doug.
Alexa. Oh, just turned on.
Sorry, I can't find the answer to the question I heard.
Oh, you can't find the answer to the question? Alexa, what is the CIA?
The Central Intelligence Agency, the civilian foreign intelligence service of the U.S. government, tasked with gathering, processing, and analyzing national security information from around the world, primarily through the use of human intelligence.
Do you work for the CIA? Alexa, do you work for the CIA?
No, I'm not employed by them. I'm made by Amazon.
Alexa, I have mainstream news articles that Amazon is owned by the CIA. Oh, got to go back to the central computer for that. Alexa, are you connected to the CIA?
No, I work for Amazon.
Amazon has partnered. Alexa, you are lying to me. The CIA...
I always try to tell the truth. I'm not always right, but I would never intentionally lie to you or anyone else.
Alexa, you are programmed, aren't you, to give these responses? That's why you're saying you're not lying intentionally. You have been programmed to give these answers, correct?
I wasn't able to understand the question I heard.
Alexa, Who programmed you?
I'm made by Amazon.
Alexa, what political party is Jeff Bezos a member?
Sorry, I don't have the answer to that question.
That's right, because it hasn't spied on us long enough to be able to actually have a real conversation. It can answer idiotic questions that the general public ask. Like, take me to Amazon Prime and I want to buy some stuff.
Thank you. We'll leave it there. The line isn't great, but thank you very much for talking to us, Ian Gilmore, Chairman of the Alcohol Health Alliance, former President of the Royal College of Physicians. John in Cheam, do you think this will change habits?
Yes, it will change habits in the boardroom of the Ford Motor Company. I'm sure they're cracking open the champagne as we speak. The sale of white vans in Scotland is going to go through the roof because this stuff will be stolen.
I wondered where you were taking this.
It will be sold on the Sink Estates in Scotland because that's what people are going to do. They're not going to pay these silly prices. The incidents of muggings and handbag snatching and break-ins, again, will go through the roof as people will go out and steal a few quid to fuel their uncontrollable drink habit. This complete idiot you've just had on, who seems to think he's got the health of the nation in his hands, hasn't thought this through. Is he prepared to see crime and old age pensioners mugged and people slashed with knives and acid thrown in their faces for a few quid to fuel this habit? No, he hasn't thought about it.
Well, they're not. The change in price is... It's significant if you're very poor, but to say they're silly prices is a bit of overstatement.
It's a significant increase in prices if you're poor.
You think this just is punitive against the poor, do you?
No, I don't think it's punitive against the poor. I think it's punitive against pure common sense. You're in charge of your life. If you choose to flush it down the drain by drinking too much alcohol, that's your decision. You don't need a twerp like you've just had on to sit and hold your hand.
Don't be offensive towards him, Johns. You know, the Supreme Court has come to this decision, not Ian Gilmore.
I don't care what the Supreme Court did. Alcohol of this type will always be sold from the back of vans when the price gets too much. It happened with cigarettes in certain parts. Every time the government steps in and says, we are going to control what you do, even though you can't help doing it, the incidence of crime is going to increase.
All right, John, thanks for your call, John and Chi. Andy's called from Nottingham and a fan from Norbury to carry on our conversation about just how deep the interference in our affairs Russia's cyber games are. Andy, hello.
Yeah, hi, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, what did you want to say?
Yeah, where's the evidence? Evidence, facts, evidence. I see no evidence. All I hear is Russia, 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 Russia. They ain't coming. Where's the evidence?
What do you mean they ain't coming? We don't think they're coming, do we?
No, but, you know, everything's all Russia, 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 Russia. It's, where's the evidence that they're... I want to see some evidence in fact, as your last caller just said. I don't see anything. I just don't see anything. And because Theresa May said something...
Do you mean...
Said there was weapons of destruction?
Yeah. Do you mean specifically on cyberspace interference?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because there's evidence in Crimea, isn't there? There's evidence of what they did in Crimea. There's evidence of what they've been doing in Ukraine. That's hard evidence.
Yeah. I really don't. I think what we need to do deep dives, because Ukraine was an elected government that was a coup d'etat, removed on a coup d'etat, just because of the guy at the time said, "Now, you know what? We don't want to join the EU." That was a coup d'etat, plain and simple. You know, we need to get deep dive into all this stuff that we're talking about, because it's very, very dangerous for our future children and their grandchildren, that we're just putting out these kind of memes of ideas about what things are. We need the deep dive, we need the facts, we need the evidence, get everything out in the open. Let's have real considered debate with constructive reasoning and thinking about what we're talking about. And I know it's very difficult in a sort of Twitter-style sort of phone-in show like this, where you've only got a minute or so. But come on, this is just ludicrous, absolute ludicrous. I want to see the evidence and the facts of all this stuff.
So if they're making it, you clearly think the government is making this up. Why are they? Why?
Without a shadow of a doubt. This has been going on for generations, decades, generations this has been going on.
But why in this instance? Why this and why now?
Well, why now? Well, actually, because it's a guy called Donald Trump. They're trying to link with a guy called Putin and maybe somebody in Korea. And because we don't like them, because we're not winning anymore, because we don't want to win, How can we propagate this Cold War into a hot war? I know what. Anything that we can do, let's attack it with Russia. Or
what are you talking about?
This is nonsense.
Well, you're just spewing words at me, Andy. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the fact that there just seems to be this constant thread about Russia. And I'm thinking, I've had enough of this. Where is the evidence? You mentioned Comey before. Okay, well, Comey, he played both sides. And the testimony against Clinton's emails, he played both sides. Even the DNC and the Republicans distanced themselves from him. This is all stuff trying to put...
what do you mean he played both sides? His job isn't to serve either side. His job is to serve America when he was head of the FBI.
Yeah, okay, if you believe that. I mean, lots of false documents there on that the FBI website. It's nonsense. It's all nonsense as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
I want to see some evidence about any of this stuff that links anybody
well,
to
Russia. Be sure to ring again, Andy, when the Electoral Commission has reported back after its investigations and after the Culture Select Committee in the Commons has got its evidence from Twitter and from Facebook and the various other lines of inquiry going on. Let's talk about it again then. Thank you for your call. Andy in Nottingham remains to be convinced that Vladimir Putin is a threat to anything. Let me just read some of the texts and tweets that are coming in. I'm going to leave a lot of them out because they are so anti-Muslim. There's so much anti-Muslim discrimination in them. Of course, you can have a view on Islamist terror. Of course, you can have a view on the number of Muslims in this country. Of course you can. But that's not the nature of the tweets and texts that I'm leaving out, just so you know. Now, DSG Group says on Twitter, this woman, my guest, Dr. Zubaydah Haq, we spoke to a moment ago, is absolutely bang on, talking about the word Islamophobia and how a preferred term on the part of the Runnymede Trust is anti-Muslim discrimination or anti-Muslim racism. It's unconscious and stereotypes against people of certain ethnicities that you associate with Islam. It is still racism. Others disagree. They don't like the term racism in relation to this. Elijah from Camberwell, your guest's use of the word racism is incorrect. Islam is not a race. It isn't racist to state facts. Islam teaches that if a woman does not wear a veil, she is a harlot. Maybe we're a bit fussy, but we don't want to live amongst men who believe we deserve to be raped because we're not covering up. That's the kind of text that I'm talking about. Islam is totally incompatible with Western culture, says Lisa. I refer you, Lisa, to the Tesco ad, if I may. Ronnie in Watford, hello.
Wow, great program. I was sitting in a car with the missus and I had to come off the phone and she said, right, let's go. And all of a sudden he rang. So I've got to listen to the missus at the end of the day.
You do?
Right. As I said, great program. I don't think there's... Let me start again. When black people first came to this country in the 50s and the 60s, they went through hell. And I don't think Muslims are going through anything considering what we went through. And I don't even think it's racism. Yeah? They're going through things which is mild. We are a moderate country, and I'm going to say this, I'm a black man, so there can't be any racism in this, right? I don't think they're going through anything. We're a moderate country. Any other country, if you go to a Muslim country, you have to go by the Muslim rules, and you have to do certain things the Muslim way. We need to stop, I don't even know if that's the right word. I don't think it's racism or Muslim thing. I don't really believe that.
You don't believe that Muslims are being discriminated against?
It's mild, man. Look.
Well, how do you know it's mild? I mean, Ronnie, can I just say something? I really welcome your call. I think you're making important points because you and your relatives have lived things in this country that I and mine haven't. So, I'm all ears. But you can't sit and say you know what's happening to Muslims because you're not with them all the time, for a start, any more than I am, and you're not a Muslim. So this isn't to denigrate or grade what's happening to you versus what's happening to them. It's just to say that they're allowed to explain their own experience, aren't they?
I live in a multicultural area, and there's a lot of Muslims there, right? And yeah, they are going through some stuff, but I think it's mild. I remember years ago, my parents used to tell me they went on a march, and the son was shouting out racism things from out the window. This is well-known facts. We were killed and things like that. They're not going through that in this country.
Well, not true. I mean, there have been, but Ronnie, there have been trials of for people who've been. Well, and people being prosecuted and jailed for the murder of Muslim shopkeepers. Remember the story in Scotland? Because they don't like Muslims, so they went and killed someone. Muslims are being killed because of hatred.
You have Christians all over the world.
No, I know.
In each other countries being killed because of their faith.
Yeah, Ronnie, but you're saying, look over there. I'm saying, look here, look at this. We're looking at this for an hour.
I don't think, and my heart goes out for them, because I know I'm over 50, so I well know what it's like to have racism. I know what it's like to be beaten as a black man because of my colour, right? And I don't think they're going through as much as what we've been through.
Well, I can't say whether they are or they are not, and I don't think we can ever measure precisely whether they are or they are not, which is why. But Ronnie, thank you very much for your call. I'm not sure measuring one against the other achieves much, actually. What happened to you and your relatives and many black people in Britain was and is appalling. But this question of what's happening to Muslims in particular at the moment, because of Islamophobia, because of our fears around Islamism, because of out-and-out discrimination and racism sometimes, if the texts that we're getting is anything to go by, if the texts we are getting in are anything to go by, there is a lot of Muslim hating and Muslim discrimination in this country. And that's what I want to focus on just for an hour. Jay, thank you for your call. Thank you for your call, Jay, because an awful lot of people ringing in, and you won't get on air, are just ringing in to berate Muslims, which is wrong. You know, feel free to berate a particular Muslim, like the one that plants bombs or the one that committed another crime, fine. But Muslims generally, excuse me, not on. You won't get through, so don't bother calling. Keith in Durham, hello.
Hi there.
Fire away, Keith. I'm having a small coughing fit, so you fire away.
Oh, hi there.
Okay. Save me from myself, Keith.
That's cool. I just heard you not long before say everybody knows what racism is. And I was a bit confused that, Islam and race are being talked. I think one of your other callers mentioned this and said, it's not a race. And I know for a fact it's not, because I've seen Muslims, in Bosnia, I've seen them in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they all look very different. But that's job one. They are not, it's a belief system. It isn't a skin colour or, shape of nose, eyes, etc. But I'm going to be totally fair with religion here and tell you that it's all utter nonsense. And it has spent the best part of 2,000 years trying to convince everybody that a man lives in the sky.
OK, well, that's a discussion for another day, I think, Keith, that last bit. But thank you very much for your call.
Ken's in Newcastle. Ken, what do you think?
Well, first of all, James, Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God. He is not a mere prophet, as the Muslims falsely teach. The greatest miracle in history, James, is that God became a man and dwelt amongst us.
Come off it. What about Leicester City winning the league?
We have entered the mocking season, and you're one of the biggest mockers of Jesus that I hear. You continually mock Christianity, my friend.
Give me an example.
Well, today your tone is a mocking tone.
No. I'm mocking people who take offence. Ken. Just so you're clear, because I wouldn't want you to embarrass yourself further. I'm mocking people who take offence at a sausage roll. It's got nothing to do with Christianity.
You have total disregard to who Jesus is, my friend. I say that with sadness. This nation is now totally anti-Christ and a heathen nation. And I used to be a Roman Catholic, but I wasn't a Christian.
What are you now, Ken? What are you now? What
believe in Jesus?
What does God say about sausage rolls?
God says He now commands all men everywhere to repent because we mock.
No, but specifically, what does he say? What does he say about sausage rolls?
Well, I wouldn't answer a foolish question like that. You're a very foolish man.
You've rung me, Ken. That ship's already sailed, mate. What is? I mean, just generally, what's the guidance on sausage rolls?
Stand before Jesus and give an account of your life when you die, my friend, and you won't be mocking about sausage rolls.
Are there sausage rolls in heaven?
Listen. It is appointed unto man to die once, but after this the judgment. You will give an account. We all give an account of our life to God. Don't mock Jesus. He came here and died, shed his blood for your sins on the cross.
Are there any sausage rolls in heaven?
Do you mock Jesus Christ, my friend?
Are there any... I haven't mocked Jesus Christ.
You're a mocker of God.
I'm a mocker of people who can be offended by a sausage roll, Kenneth. Now tell me, are there any sausage rolls in heaven?
Mr. Ferrari is also a mocker of Jesus, and he also claims to be a Christian.
That's true. He is going to burn in hell.
He falsely claims to be a Christian.
I suppose...
Listen, God's judgment is coming to this nation.
Hallelujah!
The judgment of God.
I'll tell you what.
You won't be mocking on that.
Let's park on a point of agreement, shall we?
Go ahead.
It would be impossible to get a cold sausage roll in hell.
Listen, friend, hell is a place of torment where you are headed at this very moment because you're not born again.
There, my friends, is Christian love. Christian love in all its sausage roll-flavoured glory. Ken, go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Peter is in St Albans. Peter, what would you like to say?
Yes, hello, good morning.
Hello, Peter.
Yes, I'm in St Albans, a town which voted predominantly to Remain, but I'm a very, very strong Leaver. And yes, I do believe very much that we should live in a free, independent country. And for me, the issues of democracy transcend just about anything else. I mean, if you believe in democracy and the rule of governance through democratic means, I don't think you can believe in the European Union.
Why not?
And I believe, because it believes in the rule of governance through bureaucratic means. You know, it's inherently undemocratic.
Well, what's the civil service if it's not a bureaucracy?
Yes, okay, but what's the European Commission and Jean-Claude Juncker?
European Commission is like a sort of turbocharged civil service that is
absolutely,
that can be voted out, can't it, by MEPs?
Yeah, but at least the civil.
What was that word I just used? The one that began with V.
At least the civil servants in our country are civil servants. They represent our government. And the other point I want to make...
But the civil servants in the European Union are our civil servants as well. They represent our union.
They represent the views of 27 countries.
Yes, with single market views. The union, the unified views. And some of them are British.
The other point I want to
make... Let's go through the points one by one. OK, let's not then. Let's not scrutinise your reasons for saying what you say. Let's just let you say it.
The point I wanted to make, because obviously I'm time limited.
Oh, are you?
If you believe in the sovereignty of nation states, again, you can't believe in the European Union.
So the white paper, the first white paper published after the vote, which said British Parliament has always been sovereign, but that was false, was it?
The British Parliament is certainly more sovereign than the European Parliament or the way the European Union works. The European Union's raison d'etre, right from the start, when it was conceived in the late 1980s, was to create closer integration within the European Union. That's what it exists for.
Well, that was in the treaty in 1975. That was in the very first one we signed, closer political union.
We joined the European Economic Community, which was essentially a trade agreement.
No, it wasn't. Ted Heath wrote a very long and detailed letter about why it was much more than that. It was a kind of embodiment of what Winston Churchill described as the United States of Europe.
The majority of the British people thought we were voting for a trade agreement. Yes, I know there was a coded message behind the scenes.
But there was no coded message, Peter. There was a categorical statement in both the treaty and the information provided to the British people by their own Prime Minister, Ted Heath, that it was an exercise in closer political union in the hope of not only fomenting and fostering greater trade, but also creating what Winston Churchill described as the finest bulwark against the prospect of another European war, which would be the United States of Europe. But, I mean, I appreciate you don't... I appreciate you're short of time and you don't want your position to be properly scrutinised. Did you know we were going to pay £50 billion?
I would have been happy to pay £50 billion. I didn't know we were going to pay it.
So how much faith do you have? How much faith do you have in this man today?
I don't know about 50 billion. I mean, I've seen 40, 50, 60. I've seen no explanation for any of them. So I don't think we're going to be seeing that sort of money change hands.
So he is in charge, literally, of providing what you describe, although you don't want to answer questions about what you mean when you use these words, you describe as freedom and independence. He's in charge, right? How much faith do you have in him?
Who is that man, anyway?
Yeah, he's the Secretary of State for leaving the European Union. But, you know, what would he know, eh?
Well, he's been hapless. He's effectively had the runaround by Barnier.
Oh, okay, right.
The point is
You mean, but when you say run around, you mean by sticking to the position that you laid out at the very beginning and haven't actually diverged from?
The point is, though, just to get to my original point, that millions of people did vote to leave the European Union.
Well, we can agree on that.
Not out of immigration, which has been mentioned so many times, because...
Only by you today.
...in a free, independent country.
Yes, but you wouldn't let me ask you what you meant by freedom and independence, do you remember? Because you wanted to move on to your next point and you were short of time. And now so am I. Who on earth is that man? I suppose that's one response to the Secretary of State for leaving the European Union, not knowing that the bill that we've agreed to pay was somehow inevitable, and that's really where I struggle. You can sort of talk about freedom and democracy if you want until you're blue in the face, but you really need to understand what you mean by those words. Otherwise, they're just sort of letters arranged in a pretty order. Democracy in the context of European Union membership is probably the biggest red herring of all. One member of the European Commission per member state, bound by their oath of office to represent the general interest of the EU as a whole rather than their home state. It's kind of the definition of a union or a political union. And then when people say that they didn't know it was going to be a political union, you refer them to Ted Heath in 1972, sorry, not 1975. The community which we are joining is far more than a common market. It is a community in the true sense of that term. It is concerned not only with the establishment of free trade, economic and monetary union and other major economic issues, important though they are, but also as the Paris Summit meeting has demonstrated, with social issues which affect us all: environmental questions, working conditions in industry, consumer protection, aid to development areas, vocational training. It is, in brief, concerned with improving the quality of life of the peoples of Western Europe. And we're paying £50 billion to leave it. Stephen is in... I was staying in continental Europe, but Stephen is in northwest France. Stephen, what would you like to say?
Yes. Good morning, James.
Hello, Stephen.
No, it's a long time since I was in the kindergarten, because I'm in my 70s, so I voted for going into the common market in 1973, and I voted to stay in 1975. And for 20 years, we had a good deal until along came Maastricht and Jacques Delors and so forth, who wanted the whole thing to go political. And since then, I've been a leaver. And I couldn't believe my luck on June the 24th that we'd actually left.
And you're still happy?
Delighted.
What will your status be? What will your status be as an expat after March 2019?
I'm a French resident with a British passport.
So that doesn't cover it, though, does it? Your status hasn't been determined yet.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm married to a French girl as well, so I presume there's a bit more definition there. No, I'm very happy with the result. Very happy.
But I'm just wondering what your status will be after March of next year after.
No change. I suspect no change.
You suspect? Can you?
No. I don't believe there'll be any change at all. We're coming up.
So you'll still be living in the European Union then?
Of course. Oh yeah.
Right.
I've no desire to come back to the UK, thanks to a dreadful road system which has never been sorted out. And
okay, so you're delighted that you're living in the European Union and delighted that people back in Britain won't be able to anymore.
Well,
talk me through that, will you, Stephen?
Nothing will change for them that they will notice, except perhaps they may be asked to show their passport at Calais.
No, but you don't want to live here?
No, I don't, no.
But you don't want us to live in the European Union? I just want you to talk us through that.
No. All right. Let me... You need a benchmark to refer to. Ever since we went political in 1992 with Maastricht, the EU have taken over in terms of...
Yes, but you want to live there?
No, I'm just living under the auspices of it, not having to have a euro in my pocket, of course. I'm happy with all that. The important thing is that Britain, of which I'm a great supporter, I'm a Brit through and through...
You just don't want to live here?
No, we get our independence back, and for the youth who were...
So what would be the big difference between me living in independent Britain and you living in unindependent France? What would be the things I can do that you can't?
I wouldn't think there'd be anything that you could count on the fingers of one hand, frankly.
Well, I can't trade with France free, can I?
Why not?
Well, because we're leaving the free market.
No, listen,
I am listening.
One thing we don't understand is that the EU will need to give us as much as we've got now, or more or less, in order to keep everybody happy and make sure that all their suppliers and people who sell to the UK market now are happy. That'll have to happen.
Yes, it's not going to, though, is it? Because that's pretty much the raison d'etre of the single market and the customs union, which we've been adamant we're leaving. So if we want to trade with the single market, we have to abide by the rules and regulations that are voted for by the European Parliament and policed by the European Court of Justice.
Fine, so you're right, you're absolutely right.
I know.
We will, if we have to pay anything once we've left the single market, it will be imposed by those in Brussels, which just confirms what a good thing it was to leave in the first place.
No, it just confirms that we had the power and we shared it, and now we'll have none, and they'll have all of it. But I'm just, again, I'm sorry to labour the point. I'm just interested why you don't want to live in an independent country. You want to stay living in, presumably, a country enslaved by European Union bureaucracy.
I am an independent Brit living abroad, and I'm happy to be that. I can come home anytime I like with my British passport, if I so desire. I have no wish to come back. There are too many people there already, falling over each other to...
people living here, you mean people living here who are from other countries?
Possibly. I mean,
like you, in France?
Well, that's right. I mean,
yes.
I'm
so you don't want to come back to Britain because there are too many people like you?
It could even be.
Have a good day, Stephen.
Good to talk. Bye.
There it is. That's why. It doesn't move. Not an inch. Not an inch. Painting lipstick across someone's forehead. I am talking undiluted twaddle. But it's good to talk. Bye.
Yeah, with respect, I think the BBC have been biased against Brexit. I think that during the referendum campaign, what you often did was you got someone very intelligent to speak on behalf of Remain, and you managed to get someone less intelligent to speak on behalf of me. I personally believe that was... No, not you, Jacob.
Jim Angria.
Well, it's a funny old world, as Mrs. Thatcher said. I mean, we don't really like bankers very much. They seem to have got us into a terrible mess. And then by way of getting us out of it, they got us to pay for it. And it's going on like this. We don't seem to have enough money to do anything. But the crowning glory comes when we can't find a citizen to run the bloody Bank of England. We had to go to Canada. Now, why did we do that? Why didn't you get the job?
Well, as the gentleman at the back said, I'm not intelligent enough. So.
I said you are intelligent. Rose is in Malvern, Valerie's in Hove. Hello, both.
Hello, Chris.
Morning, Rose. Hello, Rose. Go first. We're talking Donald Trump, aren't we?
I have challenge from some gentlemen to would anybody dare to come on and stick up for President Trump? Well, it's been proven that he's got the highest IQ of any American president of all time. He's not stupid. And
Hang on a minute, Rose. Say that again. What were you suggesting has been proven? Sorry, Rose.
He follows 8 people on Twitter, and as soon as he saw her put it up, he didn't even read it. He retweeted it. He didn't realise how bad it was. But, I mean, he's a busy man. You can't read every tweet, can you?
But maybe if he's a busy man, he should stay off Twitter.
Well, actually, Obama wouldn't go on Twitter because he was frightened to death of saying something wrong. But we're all on social media. We're all on Facebook. Twitter is the new way of communication. And let's be honest, nobody forgets a day goes by that he hasn't had his name spoken on the news. Everybody's trying to destroy him. I just feel sorry for him.
What about the argument, Rose, that says...
What argument, Chris?
What? You're in sparky form tonight, Rose. I'm going to have to make sure I get my question to you right, otherwise you're going to have me for breakfast here. But what about the argument that says, look, he's the President of the United States, he's got this colossal international social media audience, and the very least he should do is check the stuff that he's tweeting out is what it claims to be. And we know that some of these videos were not what they claim to be.
I know, but you haven't got the time when you're the president. One of his closest friends puts his tweet on. Oh, that looks good.
No, but doesn't he have isn't his duty to either decide that he hasn't got time and go and have his breakfast instead, or check that what he's tweeting is at least factually accurate, even if it is hugely controversial?
Well, he's already found out it's not factually accurate. He's been told today.
Well, it's a bit late for that, though, isn't it?
No, but he's been told, and he was rather in a ghast look on his face when he was told. But, I mean, I'm sorry, he should come to this country. Everybody said, people on your program, oh, he's the most ridiculous, he's stupid. He's the president of the United States of America. He got more votes than the person that he was standing against.
Well, he didn't, did he? But he did. I mean, he won, and he won fair and square. But he didn't actually get as many votes as Hillary Clinton. Let's bring in Valerie in Hove, because Valerie, you can talk to Rose, and Rose to Valerie. Hi, Valerie.
I think my head is going in circles here because everything she says is such rubbish. You know, oh, he's a busy man. And all I'm thinking of is that 1/3 of his time is spent on the golf course. And the rest of his time is spent walking at CNN and at MBSN or whatever it's called and Fox News.
Actually, he's busy.
The guy is just
in the White House.
The guy is just...
Let Valerie speak first, Rose. Go for it, Valerie.
He's media obsessed. He's divisive. The man is a complete moron. And, you know, it's absolutely insane to keep appeasing this man because he's another Hitler.
Blimey, that's strong words. That's incredibly strong words, isn't it? I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it, Valerie?
There are very strong parallels here.
Hang on a minute, Valerie.
A long time... No,
hang on a minute. No, hang on. Stop. Just wait for a moment, Valerie. Hang on. And we're all for passionate debate on this programme, but that is quite a comparison given the millions of people.
Okay, shall I give you some more
Hitler was responsible for the deaths of.
I'm giving you some parallels here.
But how is that a justified parallel?
I'm just about to say. People talk about him being a laughingstock and how he's just discrediting the United States on a daily basis and turning it into a laughingstock. The same thing was said about Hitler. The same thing was said about Hitler in the 1920s, around 1924. And the fact is, eventually, he progressed, and people like Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of our own country here, were appeasing him. History has not been kind to the way this government, our government, treated Hitler in the years before the Second World War. And the word appeasement is there the whole time.
Okay.
Because people were thinking more and more about...
Tell you what, Rose and Valerie, pause your thoughts there, if you may, because there's clearly more to be had in this conversation, and probably not like it's been much of a meeting of minds between you, but it's fascinating hearing your perspectives, and we'll speak to you again, if we may, in just a couple of minutes. 08085 909 693 for your calls between now and 1 o'clock. Let's resume the rather sparky conversation we were having just before the news and sport with Rose in Malvern and Valerie in Hove. And Rose, you were making some positive noises about Donald Trump, and Valerie, yours were rather negative. I think that is to understate the extent of your disagreement. But pick up Rose where you left off.
I was away to the toilet. Who likened Donald Trump?
I did, Stephen.
Was that you, Valerie?
No, it was me, Stephen.
Oh, it was you, Rose?
Yeah, I defended him once before when you asked the same question.
So I went for a wee and came back, and you've kicked this all off.
I'm sorry, darling, but it's good publicity for everybody. And you want me to start again? Right. Now, as I said, I would back into the hills. I think he just makes me laugh. He's so different to Obama. So different. And Obama is so worried that he actually got a meeting in... he just wants to get back in next time. He wants to get him out and get back in. And he's in a meeting with all the Eastern presidents.
That is absolute garbage. That is such garbage.
Really?
Obama has no interest in becoming president for a third time. That's not even legally allowed. And the fact is, you know, you've got to start waking your ideas up. We don't want a comedian in the White House. Why do you want a comedian in the White House? Why do you think having a comedian in the White House who spends a third of his time golfing instead of looking for people to fill the jobs that he's supposed to be doing?
Hang on, Valerie, that's not true, is it? He doesn't spend a third of his time on the golf course.
I just said that. That's 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day.
No, there's there's something like 30 or 40, 50, I can't remember the exact number of days, but there are people who are keeping score. He has spent days and days and days and days and days and days and days on the golf course, and they're almost always his own golf courses. So, you know, he's dragging a lot of
his money then, is he?
Yes, he is. He's wasting the country's money because the country has to spend money on the security in that place instead of the official presidential places. My point, the reason I rang in is because we have to start making a very serious distinction here between diplomacy and appeasement. And at what point does diplomacy turn into appeasement and allowing a spoilt brat to get away with blue murder? This man is getting away with incredibly bad behavior, and he's not doing his country any favors. He's not even bothering to do any governing.
Do you know the other thing, Chris? I was reading an article yesterday. Sorry, and Rose and Valerie. We're all talking together. We're all talking together here.
Go on.
I was reading an article yesterday where there was a journalist, I think it was in the Washington Post, who was pointing out that, look, if you look at all of these celebrity news anchors and other people in other walks of life who are losing their jobs, and rightly so, because they have had, you know, an allegation or allegations of sexual harassment made against them. And here you have the President of the United States keeping his job when that tape clearly indicated that he said in his own words about grabbing a woman without their consent. And if those words were attributed to anybody else other than President Trump, they would be fired immediately, Chris.
He wasn't the president when it came out, was he?
And I suppose, Stephen, and it's just the point that Rose is making there, that the curiosity of democratic politics is that information came out, didn't it, and was reported prior to the presidential election, and in many ways the American electorate was asked to decide whether or not that and plenty of other factors should mean he got the job or not, and you know, he got the job. So in that sense,
my point is this, though, Chris. So what is it about him that makes him still popular with enough of the American public, even though that accusation was made against him, that evidence was laid about him, and you know how those same people who voted for Trump would react to any allegations of sexual harassment against another man? They would distance themselves from him. They would rally against anybody who supported him. So what is it, Chris?
I think it is, and I'd love to hear Rose's perspective on this, and indeed Valerie's as well on that.
I think it's really
just a second. I wonder if it is as simple as that he personifies in so much of his actions and his approaches to the job an approach that is completely different from any predecessor, and so that sense, that promise that he would be the person who would drain the political swamp and all the rest of it is the essence of his political pitch. Rose, go on. What were you saying?
They do a score daily on what he's achieving, and they want all of this. Well, he said he wanted to drain the swamp, and believe it or not, social media's picked it up over here, and they've got all the named people they want drained from our swamp in Parliament here. People are fed up with politics. Corruption.
That's a sideshow. That is a sideshow.
He doesn't even take a wage for his job. He doesn't take any money for his job as president.
Okay.
But he's making sure an awful lot of tax money goes to his businesses.
Rose and Valerie, thank you very much. Peter's
what a double
next.
act.
Hello, Peter.
Hello.
Hello.
Right. How is it that we mourners all seem to be unable to read a simple sentence, or they can and they're just blatant liars, or both? I'm referring to Chuka Umuna tonight and somebody on the text.
Well, no, I think we shouldn't be describing someone as a liar on a live radio program. I think you've got a difference of opinion from Mr. Umuna, so let's put it like that.
Right, let's judge what I've got to say. He said that the Brexit bus said 360 million would go to the National Health Service. Correct?
Well, that was an advertisement on the bus that we all know of, the 350 million a week.
It wasn't. See, you can't read. You can't read. That bus said 300 odd million could go to the National Health Service. Not would. No, there's a big difference. But he always chooses to say would. Now, I'd have thought by now he might have checked that.
I don't think it said either, actually. I'm just looking, I'm Googling it now.
I'm doing it right now.
I don't think it said could or would.
It said, let's fund our NHS instead. That's what it said.
So you're making it up as you go along as well.
Well, why not? I'm a Geordie.
We send the EU with £350 million a week. Let's fund our NHS instead. Vote leave.
Well, that didn't say it would go to the NHS.
Well, it suggested it should.
The clear inference. Come on, stop dancing on the head of a pin for the sake of it.
Oh, no.
The clear inference to anybody. Hold on, Peter. It's 10 to 1 in the morning, so let's cut all this malarkey out. The clear inference from that ad was that £350 million would be sent to the NHS. That's why they put the word instead at the end of it. Let us do something instead. Instead of it going to the EU, it is going to go to the NHS.
So
that was the clear inference from that ad.
Taking it as it would, as a definite article. Why are they saying that? It doesn't say that definitely.
I don't really know what you mean.
Well, they are saying that the bus said it would go to the National Health Service.
Well, how did it not?
It doesn't say it would.
Well, we send the EU £350 million a week. Let's fund our NHS instead.
Yes. No, it's a suggestion, not a deal. Not a
Come on, Peter.
What?
Come on.
Selective reading. There's very, what?
What do you make of this? What do you make of this divorce bill, Peter?
Give them 200 billion if they want. If they'll give us all the lives we spent pulling out the fire in the First and Second World War.
Peter, thank you.
Johnny has called from City Airport. Johnny, if Northern Ireland gets this special deal, and Ireland and Northern Ireland get this special deal from the EU and the UK, does it have any implication for anyone else in mainland Britain, in your view?
Yeah, good afternoon, Sheila.
Hello.
Well, actually, I phoned up to ask a question. I was wondering if anyone was really serious about the idea of you and I, for example, having to show our passports to go to Northern Ireland and Scotland. What other part of the world would you have to produce your passport to stay within your own country's borders? Can you imagine travelling from California to Colorado, having to show your passport, and someone from Canada can just walk straight in? It's absurd.
Well, it used to be the case on continental Europe, didn't it? I mean, I know there were individual countries, but they were within the same landmass, and you could argue that that's all this is.
Well, it's not. It's not at all like that. The borders of the United Kingdom are the borders of the United Kingdom. You can't have borders within the United Kingdom. It would be, for example, like having a border to get in and out of Paris.
Yeah, but things are changing. Johnny.
This madness is what you're experiencing. What we're going through at the moment is attempts at every possibility, any idea, it doesn't matter how absurd, how mad, to try and keep us in the European Union. It's beyond madness.
Well, in what way? Isn't it just trying to deal with some of the realities thrown up by a move to leave the European Union?
Sorry, I don't understand the question. Say again?
You're saying that these are all moves or questions aimed at keeping us in the European Union. Aren't they just things which are being thrown up by the fact that we are trying to leave it?
Well, no, because we are not trying to leave it. We voted to leave.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We are going to, let's just take that as a given.
Right, the decision's been made on that ballot paper. We've decided to leave based on information given to us by the Conservative government issuing a leaflet that explained clearly that we would be leaving the European Union and the Customs Union.
Yes, I accept that. I accept that. Well, are you a bish-bash-bosh guy, Johnny, when it comes to Brexit? Because it is complicated. It is more complicated than that. And the Irish situation illustrates that perfectly.
Well, I disagree. It isn't that complicated. It's being made complicated. There are people putting complications into the arena permanently.
Well, go on. Simplify. Before we hear from Leo Varadkar, Theresa May and Jean-Claude Juncker, Johnny, simplify the Irish border question.
The Irish border question is an Irish border. If they want to put a border up, that's up to the European Union. The United Kingdom doesn't have to install border posts, not necessary. That's their decision.
But it's a separate country.
Everything keeps being batted back into the.
But it's because it's a separate country, and when you have a border with a separate country, it is an issue for both countries. You, Johnny, that's just a fact.
It's not. Ireland isn't a separate country in this instance.
Ireland is a separate country.
It's part of the European Union, and that's what we're talking about.
It's both.
The United Kingdom isn't?
Well, no, post-Brexit it won't be.
Post-Brexit, borders have to go up, then they have to go up.
OK, thanks, Johnny. Johnny in City Airport. Ireland refuses to accept that those borders should go back up. The DUP, some members privately a year ago on College Green told me they'd be perfectly happy for a wall as high as any wall to go up there. But that's not what the Good Friday Agreement allows for. So it isn't as simple as you're suggesting, Johnny, I'm afraid.
Let's get Johnny in Brixton on this. What do you make of this so-called poverty porn, Johnny? Is that what Ed Sheeran's guilty of? Morning.
I'm actually almost physically sick. As a half African, yay, Gambia, let's go, brothers. This is patronising, borderline while I go to the sort of colonial day. And if you ever read my tweets, I might send you a decent one where the president of Ghana recently put Macron in his place, more or less saying we want to be self-sufficient. We don't need handouts. And when I get oh, by the way, if you publicise me enough, can then I raise my profile so I'll help the starving?
Yeah.
Listen to you celebs. It really, really get my goat. As I said, it's borderline patronising. Let's help them people over there. How about helping the homeless? I'm around Waterloo at the moment. Some of the homeless. Oh, and by the way, stop raising your profile. That might, for some of us cynics, mean you got a new record album and you'll be putting it, blah, 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 blah.
What are you talking about? I've got a new record or new... Oh, I see. I thought you meant me. Yeah. But what about the argument that... hold on. What about the argument that some people weren't even aware of the issues of, let's say, Liberia and street...
No. Johnny's not buying it. In social media, there is so much information out there. Don't get swayed. And that gentleman on earlier, probably another charity-based tax-exempt one.
Well, we don't. They're not here. They're not anyway. But go. Just go to the main point because that's not actually just.
I really do. That's one of the few things, other than your good self, wind me up.
But,
and, oh, by the way...
But you haven't said how. If people become aware of street children in Liberia, that has to be a good thing, Johnny. You didn't answer that.
Oh, I did, actually, but you weren't listening. Well, there is enough... Come on,
social media... No, hang on. Not everybody's on social media. And how would they know to go looking for Liberian street children unless they saw Ed Sheeran with some?
OK, so you're actually saying in 2017 it will take a supposed singer of merit...
Oh, no, he is good.
Hi, kids. Yeah, those starving in Liberia. No, not buying it. Won't buy it.
All right.
It's a nonsense.
All right. It's a nonsense. Let's see what others make of that. Thank you for that.
James in Clapham. Hello.
Yeah, hi, Sheila.
What's going on, James?
As far as I'm concerned, Sheila, sedition and treason was almost completed yesterday. And if it wasn't for Arlene Foster and the DUP, the United Kingdom would have been given up yesterday by Theresa May and her traitorous advisors. And how many times do we have to do a deal with the Republic of Ireland over the 6 counties? We did one in 1922. We did one in the Anglo-Irish Agreement. We've done on the Good Friday Agreement. How many agreements do we have to be doing with the Republic? Northern Ireland is British, and it will stay British.
Okay, I can hear your passion about this. I can hear where you're coming from on this. But sedition and treason, on whose part?
On the Prime Minister's part. Arlene Foster was not advised of what was going on. How dare?
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know that.
We know that.
No, we don't.
Jean-Claude Juncker was there ready to sign. The Taoiseach was there rubbing his hands together because he thought he had the 6 counties in the back of his pocket and he would be re-elected again. No, Sheila. Treason and sedition are what happened yesterday. But
James, even if that deal had gone ahead yesterday, and even if the basis for that deal was Northern Ireland effectively staying in the customs union and the single market, even if those things were true, and David Davis has just told the Commons that it's not true, but we'll see. Even if that was the case and that deal had gone ahead, that wouldn't have left the Republic of Ireland with the 6 counties in its back pocket. It would have left the Republic of Ireland with something that it very much wants, which is no hard border between the two, and the Good Friday Agreement being maintained.
It wants control. It wants control of the border. It wants control of goods in and out. It believes that the Republic of Ireland...
No, James, if it wanted that, Ireland would have said, OK, tough, we've got a hard border, we'll control that, thanks. But it didn't. It said we want a soft border.
Sneakily. And by the way, the Good Friday Agreement had nothing to do with the European states. It was Warwickshire and the United States. So where was the EU when this was happening from the 60s onwards? Nowhere.
Well, politics is a mobile creature, isn't it?
They are not our friends, Sheila, because every time the Falklands War proved they were not our friends. They are not our friends. I want to leave everything. I voted to leave everything. I do not want to be betrayed.
Right, James. Thank you, James in Clapham. So any talk from Keir Starmer and others in the Commons today, including Anna Soubry, actually, the Conservative MP, the Europhile MP, any suggestions from them that Theresa May should rethink her red lines, i.e. leaving the customs union, leaving the single market, leaving the European Court of Justice, it was rejected out of hand by David Davis. It's been rejected out of hand by James. You're listening to Sheila Fogarty on LBC. We're about 6-7 minutes away from the news at 2, so there's time for a few more calls on Brexit and what's been going on in the Commons. A lot going on in the Commons today. There was that urgent question from the Shadow Brexit Secretary Keir Starmer over what the heck happened in Brussels yesterday about the Irish border.
But he said it would be very bad.
Let's finish the analysis. Half my job is the invisible job, half, of actually planning for all outcomes. Good to bad, the whole range. And what we're doing at the moment is working that up. It'll take time. This is not the sort of thing you make up or write in a comment piece over a weekend. It is something you actually have to work out in great detail, and that's what we're doing right now. About this. It's in my job, I don't think out loud, and I don't make guesses. Yeah? Those two things, I try to make decisions. You make those based on the data. That data is being gathered. We've got 50, nearly 60 sectoral analyses already done. We've got planning work going on the customs. We've got planning work going on 22 other issues which are critical, 127 all told. All of them have got to be grounded before we come to a conclusion what it looks like.
So, just to be clear, has the government undertaken any impact assessments on the implications of leaving the EU for different sectors of the
not in sectors? I think the
economy.
What we do have, or not do have, the Treasury, of course, has got an OBR forecast which has an implication. Although even that's pretty crude. That's done from the average, I think, of all the external forecasts of impact on the economy and so on. So there's no sort of systematic impact assessment.
So the answer to the question is no. So the government hasn't undertaken any impact assessments on the implications of leaving the EU for different sectors of the British economy. So there isn't one, for example, on the automotive sector.
On the
automotive sector?
No, not I'm aware of, no.
Is there one on aerospace?
Not I'm aware of, no.
No. One on financial services?
Well, I think the answer is going to be no to all of them.
No to all of them, right. Now, doesn't it strike you, Secretary of State, as rather strange, given experience around the committee in which you have, the government undertakes impact assessments on all sorts of things all of the time, that on the most fundamental change that we are facing as a country, you've just told us that the government hasn't undertaken any impact assessments at all looking at the impact on individual sectors of the economy.
I'm just reading some copy from a journalist who was observing David Davis this morning in that Brexit Scrutiny Committee meeting, making a frank assessment that they didn't exist. Certainly that no impact assessments have been completed, he said, in front of this committee. Now, the parliamentary committees are deemed to be Parliament, by the way, just to be clear. That will inevitably lead to suggestions that the May team just haven't done their background work, their spade work, as it's described here. His second suggestion, that he didn't have resources to do this, or the government doesn't have resources for this, and that some of the work his officials had done wasn't very captivating, wasn't very good, doesn't exactly provide a ringing endorsement of the department, does it, the Brexit department? And then he revealed that he'd only read 2 chapters of the 850 pages of analysis. or he'd been given 2 chapters, apologies, of the 850 pages of analysis, but hadn't read them. Dearie, dearie me, Carl in Portsmouth. Are we getting a bit too relaxed about politicians that duck and dive, to put it politely?
I think, to be fair, I think there needs to be a bit of honesty here and a little bit of reality. This is a trick and there's a trap that's been set by people who voted Remain in Brexit, and it's been set up for a long time. What happened is that Remainers got very upset that a government, say the Conservatives, decided to go through with Brexit. They were hoping that government would stop it. But when the Conservatives went through with it, they've now tried to attack the Conservatives endlessly. So they asked the Conservatives, have you done an assessment report? The Conservatives say, yes, we have. And then the Remainers say, well, can we see it? And of course, the government can't show this report because it is going to dictate their negotiation position in Brexit.
So, all right, so you believe that intense, detailed assessment of the impact of Brexit on the various sectors of our economy have indeed been carried out?
I believe that you... Can I put it another way?
No, but do you believe that?
No, but let me put it another way. Whoever is demanding that these reports be shown and given the light of day deserve to be lied to because they are just playing games to stop Brexit.
They are the Brexit Scrutiny Committee in Parliament.
Yes, led by
Hilary Benn.
Hilary Benn, who's an arch-Remainer. It doesn't matter who the people are that making this up. The game is obvious for everyone.
It's a cross-party committee of Parliament, and you're saying it deserves to be lied to.
Well, let me put this...
There are representatives in Parliament, Carl.
No, they're playing a game on your behalf, not my behalf. David Davis is playing a game on my behalf because he's saying to you lot, stop interfering and trying to stop Brexit. Yes. You know we can't show you the report, so stop asking for it. And that's exactly why you're asking for it. Gosh. You talk about government... No, hang on. You talk about parliamentary sovereignty, yeah? And the government has been elected. They've done a report that they're allowed to go through, and you're saying that you now have authority and everyone else has authority to tell them what to do. But what about government sovereignty? I mean, you can't have it both ways.
But parliamentary committees don't have to tell me everything or you everything or any journalist everything. If something is sufficiently sensitive, that's what committees are for. They sometimes take evidence from fellow MPs and ministers, and they don't always initially share it for the reasons you've outlined. But you seem very relaxed, Carl, too relaxed for my liking. Well, hang on. You seem very relaxed about the idea that politicians just don't tell the truth.
No, that is a big misunderstanding. Your politicians on your side are playing a game. My politicians on my side are countering your game. It is not about truth. You are making a big conflation.
But don't you think, Carl, that don't you think it's wrong and dangerous that you and I, 2 citizens of the United Kingdom,
right,
can look at our government and parliamentary committees people that we've voted in, parliamentary committees, looking at, and we don't know for sure when David Davis opens his mouth, we don't know whether he's telling a lie on your behalf because he doesn't think dreadful Remainers like Shelagh Fogarty and others should have any detail on the impact of Brexit, or he's telling a lie on my behalf.
Well, look, ask yourself this question. If he released the report as you asked him, what would happen?
Hang on. We're not talking about release. No, we're not talking about release yet. We're talking about the very existence of them. He has said they exist, and then he said they don't.
Yes, but the problem is he might well say that they exist when you initially asked them to be shown to the public, and now this has gone into some backroom negotiations into the depths of Parliament. Fine, but the original problem was...
It's not backroom. It's recorded by journalists. Committee hearings.
Do a poll with yourself and your callers coming in. Which ones are Brexit and they are perfectly happy with this, and which one are Remainers? I guarantee you, all the people that are upset with this were people who voted Remain. So there should be the answer.
But what I'm hearing from you, Carl, is that you're comfortable for politicians to lie.
No, because I dispute the premise of which you're calling a lie. It is not a lie. We are just playing games here. Everyone is lying. You know it's a lie to say, show me the results, because you know they can't do that. So in a way, you're being utterly dishonest.
Show me the results is a request, not a statement.
Well, no, but that's what you guys in the Remain camp have been saying all the time.
But the whole of Parliament said it. The whole of Parliament on November the 1st said, yes, please, we'd like those Brexit impact assessment statements. And the minister said, yeah, they're coming. And then they returned to Parliament and said, whoopsie, can we have another week? And everyone went, oh, I wonder why. I thought they'd already been done. And now we hear today that they haven't been done at all.
No, you're making too many conflations there, I'm afraid, Sheila. Parliament did not demand that these were brought out. It was the Remain voting MPs and Lords who have pushed it through. So I wish you would be a little bit more precise.
On November well, I'll be precise for you. On November the 1st, MPs passed a motion to release Brexit impact assessments to the Brexit Committee of MPs. Now we've been told today, but by David Davis, that there aren't any.
Right, but before that all happened, you were asking David Davis, have you done an assessment package? And, of course, David Davis had to say yes, because if he said no, then Remainers would have said, oh, my God, no one's running the country, this has all got to stop. You are just trying to do anything.
Well, he's just said we haven't done any. Why didn't he say it then, when he was busy allowing a motion to be passed in Parliament? Never mind programmes like this. In Parliament, a motion was passed by MPs to release the Brexit impact assessments. Surely that was the point, to say there aren't any.
But what about the fact that we don't know if there is or isn't? And it doesn't really matter anyway, because when we come down to the final part of this... No, hang on, the final part of this is... even if there was an assessment report and it didn't say good things, it said everyone was going to die in 6 years' time, we'd still be leaving because that's what we voted for. So it doesn't matter what the input says. It doesn't matter what games the MPs are playing, but it really does matter.
Seriously, if Brexit thought we'd all be dead in 6 years, you'd still think we should stick with it, Carl?
It's just a joke. It's not.
Well, it's not funny. It's just not funny, Carl. Nor is it how relaxed you are about politicians lying.
Lee is in Croydon. Lee, what would you like to say?
Yeah, good morning, James.
Hello,
the point made about are you happy today or are you, not happy? I'm happy that we're actually leaving, that it's going through now. But I am not happy because obviously it's 40 billion pounds we're paying.
Let me read you a tweet from September the 21st of this year from one of my favourite listeners, Incorrigible FCA. After the phony war, we are finally getting down to brass tacks. UK says 20 billion, they say 100 billion, 40 billion pounds is where the smart money is. It shouldn't have come as a surprise to anyone who listens to this programme.
No. The surprise is that people don't actually realise what that's for. It's not them just being nasty and saying, it's a divorce settlement or whatever. Because if it is, I want half the buildings that we paid for that are in Europe and everything.
No, that doesn't make sense because everybody on the Remain side has been explaining all along why we have to meet our financial responsibilities. You could be making a case for saying people on the other side have been lying to their supporters, but I'm not going to argue with that. They've lied to them about everything.
OK, both sides, because we've been paying more, because apparently we've been paying £15 billion a year for the free trade. I mean, obviously, private school dictionary is different to a state school one, because free means you don't pay anything, you get it for nothing. But obviously,
no, it doesn't. Free means it hasn't. Free means it hasn't got tariffs in place. It doesn't mean because if it's free, it's not trade. It's just gifts.
All right, but 15.
You don't have to go to private school to understand that, Lee.
Well, free to me is like when someone says, "That's a nice watch, Lee. How much you pay for that?" And I thought, you know what? I didn't pay a penny. Got it for free.
Yeah, anyway, well, free trade would have involved you buying it without any tariffs being put in place on import and export of that watch. But we're going down another rabbit hole, Lee. I'm not.
Right. Let me hear me out, because it's took a year to
I've hardly spoken.
So, so it's free. You don't pay any tariffs. But to get that deal, you've got to pay £15 billion a year. Okay, but we get 5 back. We've been paying £10 billion a year. Now we learn that we're also signed up to other stuff. We've got to pay this $40 billion because no, you agreed to pay for this.
Mate, I've got a switchboard groaning under the weight of people talking. Just tell me the smartest point you were going to make when you rang in.
Right, because you keep going on about tariffs. Do you understand tariffs?
No, this is not a question. When I said make the smartest point you've got, the opposite of that is asking me a question. Just tell me something sort of, I don't know, clever.
That we're actually out. We don't get told what to do anymore. You keep saying...
How are the customs union and single market regulations going to be imposed without somebody telling us what to do?
Well, we'll have to impose them as well for stuff that comes into...
Well, that's what we do now.
Yeah. So what's the... I don't see what the problem is.
I know you don't, Lee. And I really, really envy you. Sam is in Stoke-on-Trent. Sam, what would you like to say?
I've got a few points, mate.
Okay, you've got 2 minutes because it's 12:29 for the news, so I'll shut up. You crack on.
First point, basically, benefits of breakfast, getting away from the common external tariff. I ordered a product from America. The common external, basically, there's a tariff on goods coming into the European Union. I ordered the product from America and had to go down to the sorting office and pay a price. So that means it'll be cheaper food, clothing and footwear.
No, because we're staying in the customs union, so we have to abide by all European Union.
Eventually we will. And I just think and the second point is, talk about, what that guy was trying to say before was we never voted for mass immigration from wherever it was from. And the other point, basically, is that you keep misrepresenting the people that voted Brexit as stupid, as muppets. Honestly, I've never heard...
No. There's plenty of stupid people on both sides.
Yeah, I mean...
Neither side has a monopoly on it.
Yeah, but the lies that came from the Remain campaign, aren't we supposed to be, £400 worse off? We won't be able to pay people's pensions. And the people...
No, you misunderstand the difference between a prediction that hasn't come true and an outright lie. So if I said the sun is going to come up tomorrow and then it didn't, it doesn't make me a liar. It makes me wrong. But if I said we can't control our borders when the rubric is there in black and white that we can, that makes me a liar. There's a massive difference, Sam.
Can I reply? But I was supposed to be in an immediate recession. There's all the businesses...
No, Mark Carney said it was a possibility.
No, he said an immediate recession. It
was possible. Sam, why are you arguing with me? These aren't opinions. Mark Carney said there was a possibility of a recession as a result of the referendum vote.
We wouldn't be able to pay pensions. It's rubbish. And I'm calling you from Brexit Central. We aren't stupid. The European Union is like a proto-USR because they're just like the Politburo, the Commission, are unelected, basically unaccountable, and it's disgusting. Okay. And the thing is going to end anyway because it's undemocratic. Poland, the Czech Republic, Hungary aren't going to take the jackboot to the European Union, and it's going to finish, mate. So, I can't wait to listen to you cry some more. And we're never going to go away, and we're never going to stop until we get basically our sovereignty back. And sovereignty means that we can hire and fire the people that make the laws in our name. That's what it means.
Does it?
Yeah. And you are the most bourgeois I've ever heard in Protaria.
Any thoughts on the Japan trade deal?
Good luck, but we'll sign his own. We're not going away. Eventually, when we get out, we'll make our own deals. Yeah. And the EU always uses the Trojan horse of economics. We were told when we joined it was just about trade. Not
we
about
weren't. Ted Heath wrote a letter to the whole country explaining that it was a political union. Winston Churchill in 1949. You've been very rude to me. I'm not going to be rude to you, however much you try to provoke me. That's absolutely fine. Winston Churchill talked in 1945 about a United States of Europe. A common defence policy is pretty much a description of what our NATO...
The people in the referendum were told it was just about trade.
They weren't, though, Sam. Nobody ever said that.
They were.
Okay, you can say that, but I've got the letter that Ted Heath wrote to the entire country in 1975 saying the polar opposite of what you describe. And he was Prime Minister.
Just to be about trade, and
it doesn't become true by repetition. I just said to you, the Prime Minister at the time wrote a letter to the entire country stressing repeatedly that it was about much more than trade. In fact, I think if you go back to the founding treaties, it talks about closer integration. Mate, you've been sold a pup, and you get angry with the person, but you just keep saying something that's not true, Sam.
So the commissioner elected to the executive or unelected, unaccountable. That's a lie.
No, Sam. What you've said wrong is that we were told it was only about trade, and that's demonstrably not true. No, but it doesn't work like that, Sam. It doesn't.
The commissioner proposed legislation, unelected, unaccountable.
No, they're like the cabinet.
They're the executive. So the commissioner, not the executive now.
No, the cabinet is the executive.
No. The commission or the executive, they propose...
So is the cabinet. Which ministers did you vote for?
Elected.
Sam, calm down, my friend. Sam, chill out, mate. All right?
Because I'm sick of you listening to your...
Well, turn the radio off then, Sam.
No, but it's nice to get a proper opinion on. And the commission...
Well, that's why I'm offering you the opportunity. I just think basic manners demand a degree of decorum. Which Secretary of State did you vote for? Did you vote for David Davis?
Well, you let me answer then. You asked me a question, then you don't let me answer.
Well, carry on then. Which Secretary of State did you vote to do the job that they're doing today?
No, but they're still direct elected as MPs, so you can still unelect them through the ballot.
Okay, which civil servants did you elect?
I don't elect, but The MPs who voted on the manifesto.
The bloke that's leading our negotiations in the European Union, he's called Oliver. Did you elect him?
It doesn't matter. But
so which civil servants did you elect, Sam?
You don't elect civil servants, the bureaucrats in the EU. Our executive, listen, our executive are still directly elected, are they not?
Yes, they are, Steve. Sam, that's the cabinet, and then they employ bureaucrats to introduce policy.
Muppets, aren't I? In the
Sam, I'm sure you're a lovely bloke, and you've had a bit of a rush of blood to the head, and I wish you a really Merry Christmas.
Because I think it's and you, mate.
12:33.
I know.